Good morning, good afternoon. What is up, guys? Turn the music down here just a little bit. Welcome to the watch party. We're doing some last-minute setup stuff, getting things ready to go. But if you're joining us, say hi in the chat. Let me know you're there. Holla if you hear me. Let's see. I needed to turn some sounds off. They're all off. Good. Good. What's up, Kate? Good to see you, man. Thank you for joining Mr. Michael Cade from Veeam himself. Global technologist over there. Thank you for joining us, sir. If you have any questions today about what we're about to watch, you can ask in the chat. And, ooh, that's Q&A. Ooh, video. Okay. I guess we're going to blow that up. So we don't really need the Q&A. We just want that. I'm assuming this is going to be the video whenever it starts, so we'll get it there. Speaking of Michael Cade, what are you doing on my screen? You're here and there. Marty McFly. Thanks for being here, man. I really appreciate it. Guys, I just wanted to say, this has been one hell of a week. SAP Sapphire and all of their technical difficulties on Monday. Companies are still learning how to do virtual events, but we were still able to get, find a hidden Periscope feed and watch the keynote, I guess we could call it, on Monday. We got to have a wonderful experience with Cisco for Cisco Live. That, second only to Microsoft Build so far, has been my favorite virtual event of the year. And I'm looking, I've heard good things. Veeam is on this rotation where they're doing a follow the sun sort of thing. And I intentionally chose the noon Eastern time slot because I think it's the most globally available slot of all of them. So a lot of this people might have seen already, but I haven't. I've intentionally not watched anything. I've tried to stay off of Twitter and read anything that was out there, but We got about 10 minutes till the show starts here. If you need to bio real quick, if you need to grab a drink, if you need to do any of that, if you have any questions, we're going to have Veeam people in the chat here. And we're going to have special guest Rick Vanover. I believe he's Senior Director of Product Strategy over at Veeam. Cade, correct me if I'm wrong there. Over at Veeam on at about 2 p.m. Eastern, which is, the show is about 90 minutes. And then we're going to have some roundtable discussion after that about what we watched. And then we're going to kick over to Rick. And Rick and Nick are going to have a live chat right here live on stream. So yes, very excited. Very, very excited. Checking the social medias. Nothing crazy going on. Make sure that's over there. Nothing. Make sure nothing else is on my screen. Except, yeah, let me move that over. Yep, I did get it. I saw your DM just now, Mike. I did. Jason B hooked me up. My login still didn't work, so, but we're good to go. I had to borrow his. Where did these songs come from? Yeah, this is a good one. So this is, if you guys are curious about the music, something I wanted to bend the ears about a little bit is, if you're hosting a virtual event, please don't pay for copyrighted music for videos that you're going to play online. You can get people in trouble. You can get people copyright strikes if they're repurposing your content. You can get copyright strikes if you're not careful for other things. Even though you think you're being smart about it, or the agency that you hired to make the video has their own library of stuff that they pay for, like Pond 5 or Adobe Connect or any of that kind of stuff, people still get in trouble for that. I got one yesterday. DMCA strike. So, and it wasn't from anything I played. It was because 30 seconds of audio is as music bed background audio played in a video that Cisco put up on Cisco Live while we were watching it here during the watch party. Wasn't anything I did wrong. So, I hope that's a lesson everybody kind of takes to heart. Don't put copyrighted music in your streams. Please, vendors, don't put copyrighted music in your cute hype videos that you're dropping tens of thousands of dollars on to make. Because the people that really watch those and may watch those with their friends, if they try to do that live, it's 2020. We do a lot of stuff live now. There's the music you're listening to right now, completely royal free. Look up Stream Beats by Harris Heller. He has hours upon hours upon hours of music available, freely available. You can even download the original WAV files from his Discord community and use them in any of your YouTube videos, all of that stuff. I use them in all of mine. You know why? He's the sole owner and will never copyright strike anybody. He created it for this sole purpose. Anyway, back to Veeam. That's enough of me preaching. We're down to about 5 minutes till we get started here. Cade, confirm for me, is this just going to start auto playing? I don't see a play button anywhere. Makes it super blurry on the demos. The raw formats will be shared after the event and they'll be better. Okay, good to know. We'll plow through it. We'll get there. It'll autoplay. Okay, good. Thank you. So I know you and Melissa, and I don't think I know these other two lovely gentlemen that are at the top. You what? That's my best Michael Cade impression. Sorry. Actually, that wasn't fair to Cade. That was more of me trying to do the trolls in the Hobbit movies. One is Danny Allen. He's our CTO. And Anton. Okay. Yes. I do know Anton. I didn't know his face. SVP of Product Management. Yeah. All right. So let me get some stuff staged over here and get ready to go. I think we are ready. Am I going to be able to full screen this? Handouts? No. Is that as full screen as it gets? Hell, I'm even on 1080p. I'm not even on 4K. Can I hide? Oh, we got abstract. Abstract. Veeam continues to innovate at a rapid pace, and during the technology keynote, you will hear from Danny Allen, CTO and SVP Product Strategy, and Anton Gustav, SVP of Product Management, about Veeam's roadmap for the future. Packed with live demos and deep insight into what Veeam will be unveiling over the coming months, this is a session you do not want to miss. How's that? Little free VO for you guys there. Let's switch over to this one, because I feel like we're getting close. T-minus 3 minutes. That is the best you get. Any bigger, the demos look blurry. Yeah, I'm just worried about hiding the buttons and stuff down at the bottom. Like, I can't full screen the actual video in the browser. I'm still having to show, like, all these borders and stuff, and the URL and... Interesting. Okay. Is what it is at this point. We're ready to rock. Come on in, peoples. All right, I think we're good to go. Let me make sure I got my desktop audio good to go. And get my Spotify ready to stop. Yep, all right, I think we're ready to go. When does the Rickatron arrive? Well, Rickatron had a scheduling snafu. So we were intending to go, the keynote's about 90 minutes, and Rick was going to be available. We were going to just cut right over. But he is going to be about, I think about 20 to 30 minutes after that. He did have a conflict. So I'm going to just wrap with you guys. We're going to have some roundtable discussion after we watch all the demos, which I don't think will be hard to do. And then whenever Rick's available, we're going to jump on, sort of reintroduce ourselves and do the watch party, or the after party, I should say, which I'll give you guys a quick little sneak peek in case you haven't seen it here. And there we go. So we'll have that ready to go. We'll cut things over. See where we go from there. Come on. I'm amped. I'm ready. Let's do this. 30 seconds by my clock. If you're in the chat, say hi. Just a reminder before we get started, we have some Veeam people in the chat. Mr. Michael Cade, thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, comments, or any of that kind of stuff, ask them in the chat, and we'll be sure to get you there. Also, if you want to find your way into our lovely tech community, I'm going to throw a link to it in the chat right now. If you need that again for whatever reason, you can always just do bang Discord right in the chat, and we'll find your way into our Discord community. But thank you, everybody, for being here.
Good morning, good
afternoon,
good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's exciting to be here in this way. You know, I had been looking forward to being in Las Vegas with you all in person, but one of the special things about having an online conference like this, of course, is You can be sitting on your couch. You can be on the other side of the world, and you can be listening to us. This is an opportunity for us today to change the way that we've been doing business. Now, I know that this session is going to be about technology, and we're going to talk about technology, but I thought it's important to look out on the industry and to understand where we are today. Satya Nadella said recently, and I thought it was a fantastic statement. He said, we've gone through 2 years worth of digital transformation in just 2 months.
That's a good point.
Now, what did he mean by that? I'm now working at home almost every day, as are you. We're not going into offices anymore. And so we have changed the operations of our business to enable us to be productive while being remote. And so we've changed to enable remote operations. We also have changed to enable remote offerings as well. The whole industry is changing, and that's exciting. This is an opportunity for us to learn. One of the things that I personally have done, I'm now at home doing all of these video conferences every single day, but I challenge myself to say, how can I take digital transformation and leverage it as an opportunity personally? And so while I had heard a lot about containers and Kubernetes over the last couple of years, I took this opportunity myself to install Ubuntu and to install micro Kubernetes. And I've been taking advantage of the opportunity to learn. And so if you are, no matter where you are in the world today watching this conference, I applaud you if you're taking this opportunity to learn about backup, to learn about cloud data management, to understand how digital transformation is enabling remote offerings and remote operations for every organization, because that's what we think about here at Veeam. As you probably know, the Veeam vision is very simple, and it hasn't changed in 2 years and more since the inception of the company. Our vision is to be the most trusted provider of backup solutions that deliver cloud data management. Now, What do I mean by that? There's 3 terms in that saying that I like to pick apart. One is trusted. We have 375,000 customers all over the world. We are truly a global company. And we would never be able to do that unless the technology, the solutions that we were bringing to market were trusted. And so ensuring that we deliver reliability, ensuring that we have that confidence that you need in your business is what gets us up every day. The center word, the center phrase in this statement is backup solutions. Backup solutions. You know, some backup companies think, oh, I'm going to shy away from backup. I'm going to talk about metadata banks. I'm going to talk about data classification and magic voodoo. We recognize that the number one reason why you choose Veeam is for backup solutions. And that has longevity. We've been doing backup. I look back at my career. I was doing backup on a mainframe system back in the early 90s, and they're still doing backup of that mainframe system today. They have done backup, of course, of physical systems, and Veeam built its reputation on doing backup of virtual systems. But as we look forward, there is still going to be an essential need for backup in any infrastructure that delivers a digital service. And so our goal, our vision, is to be the most trusted provider of backup solutions that deliver cloud data management. Now, you ask me, what is cloud data management? What is this vision that you are painting for the industry? Well, let me start with backup, because that's really where the journey starts. If you take the data that you have that is delivering services to your customers, to your partners, to the market, those digital offerings that are now going through transformation, the first step in all of that is to protect them. Ingest the data, and whether it be backup, whether it be replication, whether it be long-term retention, that is fundamental to starting this journey. And then, of course, after we can protect our data, we can ensure that the services that we're delivering are resilient against operational failure or intentional malware that is attacking us. Then we can begin to effectively manage it. Now, you ask me, what does it mean to manage your data? Well, it's rather simple. You take those concepts of data protection and management and you automate it and orchestrate it into your workflows. So for you, that might be an integration. It might be when a developer comes in and says, I want to spin up a new service. Maybe you've already orchestrated, automated into the workflow, the ability for that workload to be protected. And so orchestration and automation, integration into the daily process of your organization is really that second step. And this is what we mean by policy-based automation and orchestration. But that is not the end of the journey. We have done that, both protection and management, of course, for physical systems and for virtual systems, and we're going to do it. We'll start the cycle again when it comes to containers and serverless and next generations of infrastructure. But those are only the first two steps. We really have to think about where that is going towards, and that is digital transformation. That is when we can take the digital services that we have and we can unleash the incredible potential in that data that we're housing to drive new offerings, to drive better operational efficiencies internally. And we can't forget that this is definitely something that we have to do both inside our organization, maybe it's remotely working from home, but it's also something that we bring out to the industry as an offering. It has those two aspects to it. And so this is what I mean by unleashing the data, taking what we have and bringing new offerings, improving our customer experiences. What is it that drives customer intimacy in a day where digital services
foreshadowing
are
for forthcoming
what they interact
demos.
With. It's understanding the customer
needs a
requirements and making it easier for them, making it simpler for them to achieve the outcomes that they need. Now, there's two very specific things that are in between that management and unleashing. And I have them here on the screen, you can see, where I have two steps in between. The first of those is data portability. We live in a world where data has to be portable. We can't keep things siloed inside our data centers anymore. That is from 40 years ago. We had a mainframe, we put our data on it, we would access that data.
From 5 years ago.
We need portability in our systems. And that is one of the things that fundamentally sets Veeam apart. From the very inception of Veeam, one of the things that we have done is had a portable data format. Now, I don't want to get too technical in this, but if you look at the way that we have stored our data backups, you have 4K, which is the header format of the file, of that VBK file. Then you have a metadata bank, and then you have the image itself stored inside the data backup. And that is critical. The reason why that's critical is because it is entirely self-describing. You can pick up that backup, move it somewhere else, and still open it. You can get rid of all the Veeam software and still 5 years from now, 10 years from now, as long as you have that data backup, you can recover your data. And that becomes very essential on that last screen that I showed you where you're moving from manage to unleash. Because it may be in that transformational phase that you move the data from on-premises to the cloud. Or maybe you extend your network from on-premises to the cloud and have something known as the hybrid cloud. And so data portability is something that we think an awful lot about. It's why we don't just stop at Veeam Availability Suite and protecting things on-premises. We've brought to market, and we're going to show you some of this later on in the session, but we brought to market Veeam Backup for AWS and Veeam Backup for Microsoft Azure, and we want the portability to move the workloads across these different infrastructures. There was a second icon on that screen that I think is incredibly important that we need to think about.
Cloud.
And that is data reuse.
Oh.
Right now, we tend to take our data, we put it in the repository, and we think, okay, I get the opportunity, the chance to reuse that if my infrastructure goes down, if I get hit by ransomware, if a malicious insider comes and deletes my data. But that is limiting the potential that data has in this digital transformation journey. We actually want to take the data that we have and to reuse it for purposes that are not just backup and replication. And I like to think about where the industry is going with this, because I think we're only just beginning now to understand the full potential. You think about the pandemic that we have right now with COVID-19 impacting the world in general. That data holds potentially information that can help solve these challenges that we face. Think about what I have on my phone. You have the GPS data of everywhere that I have been for the last 2 months. You know where that's been? At home on my couch. I haven't gone anywhere, and neither have you. But we house all of this data, whether it be GPS data or travel data or health data or climate data. And by overlaying and reusing this data for multiple purposes, we can begin to understand how solutions can be better brought to market.
Man, I have so much to say about this.
That is a fundamental
I'm just holding
step
off
on this journey to digital transformation that we're on together. Now, how are we going
Storage
to
guy over here wants to talk
this
about data
as a whole?
big
Because
way.
this isn't just Veeam standing here on stage telling you what we want to do. One of the things that we believe in is that we have to have 3 foundational principles to make this easy for you, our customers, our partners, the alliances that we work with. We need to make this simple, we need to make it flexible, and we need to make it reliable. Now, what do I mean by that? If we make a complex stack of workflows and the process becomes unwieldy, people aren't going to use this. They're not going to reuse data if it takes 27 steps and standing on your head to get that data.
Yeah, we
You
will.
need to make simple,
Been doing it for 20
easy
plus years.
workflows. And Veeam has done that. We're known as the company that you install it, the software, and you have it up and running in 15 and 20 minutes. And that's awesome. Simplicity is at the heart of everything that we do.
That's Veeam.
Second is flexibility.
Simple.
You need flexibility, and you need it now
Flexible.
more than ever, I would argue. You think about operations before where you had to fly into or go into the data center and rack and stack and change some hardware.
I miss
That
those
isn't going
days.
to work anymore. Remote operations is what we need to do. I was talking to a customer actually just a few weeks ago who was saying, I can't actually follow my tape processes because I can't get into my data center. And so now I'm taking my data and I'm tiering it to the cloud. Being flexible and software defined in this era is more important now than ever. And as you know,
Software-defined
we are
tape?
hardware agnostic. We now have integrations with over 40 storage systems. We work on any hardware. We're very flexible, software defined, hardware agnostic, and cloud ready. The third thing that we think of an awful lot when we're building this transformational journey is reliability. Now, you know Veeam as the company of it just works. And that's because when we design the software, we design it for resilience. Even if our management stack gets wiped out, as long as you have a copy of that data, you can get it back. And so reliability in this era is more important than ever. In fact, we just did a survey of, it was over 1,000 customers, and the number one requirement that they had for a backup company was it has to be reliable. And that's what we focus on. And so if you look at the stack that we have today, the heart and soul of that is backup and replication.
That was
And
always
we
my
have
number
data
one
labs
complaint
so
about
that you
backup
can
and
reuse that
backup
data, of
exec.
course. But then we have underneath it the
50-50
API
whether
set
the
that
job
we talked
finished when
about
I
that
came in each
integrates
morning.
with all of these storage platforms so that you can choose the partner and the cloud provider that is optimal for you. Above that, we have orchestration so that you can automate and integrate into your workflows. You can move from protect to manage. And part of that management, of course, is not just orchestration. It's monitoring the entire environment across all of the different infrastructures. Now, we've invested over the years. We're known, of course, as the company that started with virtualization. And that is true. We do vSphere better than everyone else, Hyper-V better than everyone else. We've added Acropolis better than everyone else. But over the years, we've added, of course, workloads for physical. So we do Windows, we do Linux, we do AIX, we do Solaris. We've added SaaS. Veeam Backup for Office 365 is the fastest growing product in the history of Veeam, and we continue to iterate on that. There's a demo coming. And then lastly, cloud, of course. We introduced Veeam Backup for AWS last December, and just recently in April, we introduced Veeam Backup for Azure. And we're going to continue to iterate on these cloud platforms because they are so important, not only for protecting them, but beginning to manage them and beginning to unleash them for the digital transformation that we need as an industry. But this would not be a Veeam keynote session unless we actually did demos. And so what I wanted to do today is I'm going to do 3 demos as part of this session. We're going to first look at Veeam Backup for Office 365 version 5.
Nice.
We're going to look at Veeam Backup for AWS version
Nice.
2. And lastly, Veeam Availability Orchestrator.
Oh.
The first of these is Veeam Backup for Office 365. Now, you might say to me, Danny, I heard Bill and Jim in their keynote talking about Act 2. And I understand Act 2 is moving from the old way of doing business of sockets to more portable licensing and moving from legacy into cloud. But you know what? This is also true at a product level for Veeam as well. Look at the version number, version 5. When I joined Veeam a little over 3 years ago, we didn't even have Veeam Backup for Office 365. We are iterating more quickly than ever to bring you the services that you need most. And so in Veeam Backup for Office 365 version 5, there's 2 things that we focused on. The first is make sure that we have the secure authentication that is needed for the world of today. You know that we face security threats all the time from outside, from inside. And so making sure we support the most modern authentication schemes is a core focus here. But the real core capability that we focused on in version 5 was around team support. Now, you probably know that we already support Microsoft Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, and because Teams was based on SharePoint and OneDrive in the back end, we had support for the underlying data. But that's never enough for Veeam. We don't just say, hey, we have support for the underlying data. We want to bring native solutions that give you not just the backup, but also the recovery that is needed on a day-to-day basis. And so in version 5, we put a focus on Teams
Isn't Microsoft backing all this up for me?
And what could be more important than that in an environment like today where we're all working from home? So we're streaming this via video, we're doing all of this conferencing. Teams Backup and Teams, Microsoft Teams, is holding more intellectual property than ever before. And so we put a big focus on that. So rather than me just talking about this, what I thought we would do is we would bring in our global technologist, Melissa Palmer, sometimes known as Veemus33 on Twitter, to give us a demonstration of Veeam Backup for Microsoft Office 365 V5. And with that, I'll turn it over to Melissa. Melissa?
Thanks, in the hizzy! The age of digital transformation has completely changed the way we collaborate. I'm going to show you just how easy it is to protect your data with Veeam Backup for Office 365 version 5.
Let's start by taking a look at one of our Microsoft Teams backup jobs.
Yeah, you were right about the blurry.
We just need to enter a name for our backup job to get started. We can protect any number of Office 365 features with the same easy-to-configure backup job. It's just a matter of adding what you'd like to protect. We can protect an entire organization or select the features we want. These jobs are really flexible. We can also exclude items from our job as necessary. We select our backup proxy and the backup repository we'd like to use. Then we set the schedule for our backup job and we're protecting our data. That's it. That's all there is to it. The next component of Veeam Backup for Microsoft Office 365 is, of course, restoring. You can easily launch the Veeam Explorers from the Explore button right here, or just right-click on a job. You can browse your latest backup or navigate to a specific point in time. This is Veeam Explorer for Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams has really changed the way we work, and it's very important to back up your team's data. With the Teams backup job, we're protecting team content, including channels, posts, files, and even tabs. Let's start by restoring a file. The marketing team has been collaborating quite a bit on the upcoming launch of this product. If I head on over to my Teams environment, what I should see here is a blog post. Unfortunately, it's been deleted. I'm going to come back to Explorer, browse my files, and I can see my blog post right here. With a right click, I can restore my file directly to Teams, or save it, or email it. Whatever works best for what I'm trying to accomplish. We can choose our restore options, then click the Restore button.
So, question for those of you in chat from Veeam: how do you actually hook into Teams instead of like SharePoint and that backend?
Files, my blog post is back.
Is there an
now what about
endpoint
posts?
for Teams?
We can come back to Explorer, right-click, and Restore Posts. Once again, we have flexible restore options. If we know what we're looking for, we have the ability to come in and restore posts from specific dates. I'm going to pick the dates I know my posts are located in, and I'm going to click the Restore button. When we come back to Teams, we'll see that our posts have restored to a new tab, so it's easy to find exactly what we're looking for. But what if you don't know exactly what you're looking for?
You don't know what you don't know.
Back in Explorer, we have the Advanced Find feature. We can search pretty much anywhere for just about anything based on a number of attributes. So if you just know a little bit about what you're looking for, it's still easy to find your data.
That's it. We've shown just how simple it is to protect and restore your Microsoft Teams data with Veeam Backup for Office 365 version 5. Now back to you, Danny.
Yeah, Anthony, that was it mostly. So it's
Thanks,
just
Melissa.
It's part
that
of your
was
365
awesome. I love to
organization.
see how simple we have made Teams Backup. And I can't think of a more important time, like I said, than now to make sure that we have native solutions for arguably one of the primary collaboration tools in the entire industry. And again, what do we focus on? Make it simple, make it flexible, make it reliable. And we've done exactly that. So thanks for that demonstration. The second product that I want to show you today as part of the technology view of where we're going this year is Veeam Backup for AWS version 2. Now, we launched version 1 of this in December of 2019. So you think about where we are right now. This is generally available today. We are 5-6 months later after that first release, and we're already doing version 2. So that just highlights again how when we talk about
I haven't even gotten to play with version 1 yet. Come on, guys.
This isn't just about the industry. This is about delivering software on a cadence that maps with what our customers and the market expects. And so Veeam Backup for AWS version 2 is now in the marketplace, and we really focused on two capabilities in bringing this out to market. The first is snapshot
Forget V1, okay.
Now, you can take a backup in one availability zone, but you also want to replicate it over to a second availability zone. And this is just a core fundamental principle of the backup and replication market. The second thing that we focused on was to make sure that we enabled that hybrid cloud scenario where you can connect on-premises to the cloud. And in fact, I want to point out we had that with version 1. You could store your data from your Veeam Backup for AWS version 1. You could connect it from on-premises with an external repository and do backup copy jobs and move data back and forth. That portability and enabling the hybrid cloud is fundamental to what we've brought to market. So what is really behind that? What is really behind that is a public API that makes this type of integration and flexibility with the ecosystem even easier than ever before. And so while we talk about features like snapshot replication and we talk about hybrid cloud, what that really means is having the flexible API set that you can integrate in with the workflows and with your environment in a more practical way. So again, I don't want to be the one just talking about this software. I actually want to show it to you. And so to do that, I'm going to turn it back over to global technologist Melissa Palmer to show you this. Melissa, over to you.
Thanks, Danny. I'm going to show you how to protect cloud-native workloads with Veeam Backup for AWS version 2 and how simple and flexible it is to do so.
Veeam Backup for AWS version 2 has a fully functional public API. To save some time, I've already created and run a new protection policy with it.
we can use the Swagger UI to get information on the policy I've already created. We can see our policy was found. We can also see the detailed configuration information about our policy, like our policy schedule. Let's take a look at the same policy in the web interface. We can quickly see important information about our protection policies, like the status of their last snapshots, backups, and replication runs in the policy view. The sessions log is a new addition to this improved UI, which makes it simple to see the status of each instance in your policy. We can also quickly access the detailed log from each session. Now let's see what the policy I created with the API looks like in the web interface. There are a couple of key things to point out here. We now have the ability to verify the permissions of our IAM role during policy creation. Next, we can select the region or regions of the instances we would like to protect. When it comes to adding instances to our policy, we can choose what we'd like to include or exclude. We can protect all resources, protect based on tags, or browse and select the specific instances we would like to add to the policy.
Once you just pointed at a region and anything I have.
It's time to decide how to protect them. The target step is where we configure snapshot replication if we'd like to use it. We just need to turn the button on and then select our target region to configure replication. We can also configure encryption here. We also configure backups in this step. We need to turn backups on and just choose a backup repository. A backup repository is just a folder in an S3 bucket.
I like this a lot.
The scheduling component of our protection policies is very flexible. We have the ability to set daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly retention periods. Let's take a look at our daily schedule. There are two important features being used under the covers when we schedule our policies. The first is integration with AWS's recently released change block tracking API. We're using change block tracking between each snapshot to shrink backup windows and reduce costs. Next is snapshot harmonization. If I click on a new backup, you'll see that the snapshot is also scheduled. We're using harmonized scheduling so backups and replicas use the same snapshot to further reduce costs. I also want to bring your attention to the cost estimate in the upper right-hand corner.
Bravo.
This helps drive better business decisions when we're protecting our cloud-native workloads.
Does that change based on whether you're using like an IFA bucket or something different, the cost metric? That's something I'm curious about.
We can see our cost estimate has increased. We can schedule our weekly policies in the same way and can customize our restore points and retention period. Once again, harmonized scheduling will keep costs low by reusing existing snapshots. Monthly and yearly retention is scheduled much in the same way. Here we can see our costs broken down by snapshots, replication, backups, and really everything that Veeam Backup for AWS does. This breakdown is helpful so you can decide how you want to protect your data. You might look at the cost and say, you know what, let's also replicate these workloads. Or you may look at the cost and say it's not justified, so you could decrease the number of restore points. We can also export the cost data for later analysis. If we'd like, we can enable automatic retries and configure notifications. If we haven't already, we can check our permissions to ensure our policy runs successfully. We can also review our policy configuration settings and copy all of this information to our clipboard.
You definitely need to do an IAM check in AWS.
These policies are extremely flexible and very powerful.
I would say almost do a permission check automatically, almost like a poll.
It couldn't be simpler to use the public API
right there,
to configure Veeam Backup for
rather
AWS
than
protection
relying
policies,
on somebody to click on
including new features like snapshot replication and change block tracking. Danny, back to you.
Good job, Melissa.
Thanks, Melissa. That was awesome. Again,
I agree. That was awesome.
The flexibility, the whole model of this is what gets me up in the morning and makes me excited. And more than that, what I like about the Veeam platform and what you're clearly demonstrating is we focus on having native solutions for the environment. When I'm backing up Office 365, I have a UI that looks like Office 365. When I'm working with AWS, I have not only a deployable module from the marketplace, but it looks like the cloud native experience, and still it integrates with what I have on premises. And so I like this native solution model that integrates into the core Veeam Availability Suite platform. And that's important for Veeam because VBR, Veeam Backup and Replication, is the product that built this house. It is the core flagship platform for Veeam. And yet we have this modular way to deliver solutions at the edge for these newer infrastructures like Office 365, like AWS, like Microsoft Azure, for all of these different emerging cloud technologies.
I don't want to Kanye Danny here, but I have so many questions.
The third product that I would like to show you today is one that is near and dear to my heart because it's really in moving from protecting the data to beginning to manage the data.
And that is Veeam. I'm making notes. I'll save them until we're done.
Version 3. Now, if you back up a moment to when we first released this, if you remember, this was an orchestration product based on Veeam replication that would help you to fail over from Data Center 1 to Data Center 2. And customers needed that, of course, because it gave them fast recovery. It made a very cost-effective model for business continuity and disaster recovery. Okay. In version 2, we added the ability to recover and do that orchestration, not just from replicas, but from backups. Now, why did we do that? We did that because everybody is doing backups. Not everyone is doing replication. And in fact, I don't know what the percentages are. I should probably know that, but I'm going to guess 10, 20% of workloads are actually replicated between two data centers.
It's less.
But backups, that is something that hopefully 100% of the market is doing, maybe 99.99%.
Yeah.
But backups is something that everyone is doing. And so if you can orchestrate recovery and business continuity from backup, you can democratize the backup to the entire market. They can recover, and not only recover, but have verified recoverability. That means documentations that is dynamic. That means testing every single day or every week or whatever your audit requires, your regulations require for an RTO test or a recovery point objective and recovery time objective test built into the platform itself. And one of the things that I'm excited with VAO, not related to the technology, but on the business front, we're introducing something known as DRPack. That takes VBR, Veeam Backup and Replication, and bundles it with Veeam Availability Orchestrator to, again, democratize this, bring it out to the masses so that everyone has availability orchestrated, not just into the data center, but into the workflows and processes of every day. So I've said all of this, that was version 1 and version 2. What's in version 3? Well, what we're adding in version 3 is the ability not to do this just off Veeam replicas, not just to do this off Veeam backups, but to do this at a storage level. So we're integrating with NetApp Snap Mirror technology so that you can recover in the fastest possible time by leveraging the ONTAP snapshots on the storage system to orchestrate that recovery. And that just takes the same concept, but it gives you an even better solution for those top tier workloads that need the highest levels of availability orchestrator. Now, in order to demonstrate this, I'm going to turn it back over to a NetApp A-Team member and global technologist, Melissa Palmer. Melissa?
Thanks, Danny. Veeam Availability Orchestrator makes it simple to automate the recovery of Veeam replicas, Veeam backups, and in version 3, NetApp ONTAP workload.
This is Veeam Availability Orchestrator version 3. The HTML5 interface means you can execute orchestration plans anywhere from any device, and this dashboard is what we see when we log in. If we head over to orchestration plans, we see all of our plans, their current state, and the results of their last test or check. Let's start by testing an orchestration plan with a data lab
test. It's like I'm watching TV in 1998.
A data lab test reuses our data to test our plan in an isolated environment without any impact to production. We simply select a data lab. A quick test is the fastest, leveraging instant VM recovery, but a full test most accurately gauges your RTO. Select a recovery location. Decide if we want to leave our lab powered on after testing for application teams to use. Then we pick a lab group. A lab group is a group of supporting VMs our application might need. In this case, I have a domain controller in here. We click Next, we see a summary, and we click Finish, and our data lab will begin testing. Let's take a look at a data lab test we've already ran. We can see our lab is running without issues, and our plan has been successfully tested. Since we left the lab running, we can access our VMs from the console directly from VAO. Data labs are a great way to reuse our data for things like patch or application testing, training new staff, and of course, verifying our disaster recovery plans. We can do all of these things without any impact to our production environment. VAO requires a few simple steps before we can protect and reuse our data. Let's take a look at what we need to configure. We can connect our Veeam backup and replication servers. VAO understands all the backup and replication jobs you already have configured, which is really handy for the new DR pack that bundles Veeam backup and replication and VAO together. When we're using VAO v3, the next thing we want to configure is our NetApp ONTAP storage systems. We add our source and destination NetApp SVMs to VAO here. We're leveraging the SnapMirror relationships that most NetApp customers already have configured.
Yep.
Now we create a recovery location. A recovery location is a logical grouping of resources. We have our compute, our ESXi hosts here, our storage systems, the NetApp SVM we just added, and then we have network mapping rules between source and target networks, and any re-IPing rules if we needed to apply them in our environment. Let's head back over to orchestration plans and see how simple it is to create one. We just need to give our plan a name, and we can also enter other useful information, like the application contact details. With VAO, we can recover Veeam replicas, restore Veeam backups, and of course, protect NetApp storage systems, which is what we'll do now.
Oh, that's interesting. So I can put an application owner and they get notified if their backup fails?
Our VM groups are simply our NetApp data store. We have a number of VM options we can choose from. The most interesting is probably the ability to recover each VM in a group simultaneously or in a specific sequence. Here are the steps we could take on each of our VMs. VAO comes with a number of enterprise application verification steps right out of the box. You also have the ability to upload your own custom PowerShell scripts for things like application verification or other DR scripts you might be using in your environment today. You can see some of the scripts I've uploaded into VAO here. After we create our plan, we have the ability to edit these steps on the per VM level. These plans are really flexible. For each orchestration plan, we can set our RTO and RPO. VAO will let us know if we violate either of them. VAO generates dynamic documentation, which helps meet your compliance needs. We can completely customize this report template. Veeam Availability Orchestrator's reports can automatically be generated and sent to key stakeholders. The plan definition report tells us all the actions taken on each VM in a plan. The readiness check is a lightweight check that takes a look at our whole environment and verifies our RPO, so we're always ready to fail over. Reports are also generated for plan tests and plan executions. As part of our plan creation, we're going to run a readiness check right now. You can see a summary of the plan we've just configured, and now our readiness check will run. The readiness check only takes a few seconds, and it gives us a lot of insight about our environment. As you can see, Veeam green means it's ready.
What is it actually verifying there?
Let's take a look at some
would
of
be
VAO's
interesting to know.
dynamic
Is it just testing authentication?
We're going to take
agent,
a look at a plan
or
definition
conversation?
report.
Is it actually testing
As you can see, we've
data
customized
transfer?
this report template. So let's take a closer look at it. If we scroll to the table of contents, we can use it to navigate. I've added several sections to this report, like application information with an application diagram. You can add any information you think would be helpful to your team in the event of a DR. We can see information on our plan like our RPO and RTO, server properties, and we can take a deeper dive into the VMs inside our plan. These are all the VMs inside this VMware group and our group settings. If we click on a specific VM, we'll be able to easily see each and every step that's taken on this VM. When we scroll to the bottom of this report, things get very interesting. This is the plan change log or your audit log. You can see the steps I added to the plan when I created it, but you can also see that Danny logged in one night and made some changes that could cause some problems.
Oh, Danny.
Luckily, our plan definition report caught it, and we were able to fix it before we had any issues.
Who gave him administrative access?
VAO makes it simple to reliably test and execute your disaster recovery plans and to reuse your data for things like patch and application testing.
Cool.
Back
Thanks,
to you,
Melissa.
Danny.
Thanks, Melissa. That was incredible yet again. Every time I listen to you, I get smarter. I learn more about what Veeam is doing and our
Well, obviously
strategy
not,
and
because
what
you're
we're
still
building.
changing
And
backup
again,
policies,
I love the
Danny.
simplicity and the integration
Come on,
with
man.
the storage snapshots, because again, this isn't about us.
Looks like
This
you
is
get to
about
carry
our
the pager
customers
next
and
week.
Giving them the best solutions, and leveraging storage snapshots, of course, gives them a better opportunity to deliver the availability that they require. So these are just 3 products in a broad portfolio under the Cloud Data Management Platform that we're bringing to market. If you take all of these capabilities and put them together, what you really end up with is cloud data management. So what is cloud data management? Cloud data management,
Good
first
question.
of all, and I don't want to shy away from this, backup and recovery. It's what we do. We do it better than everyone, and we will continue to do it better than everyone.
Asking
And
what is
that's an
cloud data
iterative
management is
process
kind of
because,
akin to
course,
asking
we were
what
the
is the
very
meaning of
best
life.
in virtualization. We are the very best in cloud. And as we move forward to containers and serverless and whatever magic pixie dust comes after that, we're still going to be the best at backup and recovery. That's part of the cloud data management portfolio. Secondly, cloud mobility. If we believe that we first need to protect, but then we need to manage and unleash, we need mobility of data to move it across these infrastructures to optimize for whatever that service happens to be. And we're seeing this today. I've written about this, in fact. The cloud is really good for things like elasticity or geographic footprint, but you may want to run a core application or infrastructure capability on premises. And so mobility becomes really important. Thirdly, monitoring and analytics across this entire ecosystem. And we can't do without monitoring and analytics. That visibility that VeeamON can provide, that the Veeam Cloud Data Management Platform can provide, is what helps you make smarter decisions, better decisions for your business, better decisions around orchestration and automation. How do I automate this into my workflows so that my outputs, my outcomes are better than ever before? And lastly, governance and compliance. We live in a world that is increasingly regulated. We see GDPR, we see CCPA, we see all of these regulations facing us. And of course, on the other hand, we have malicious individuals, ransomware, and attackers coming at us from every direction. And so making sure that we have the governance, the compliance, the security in our systems is also a core tenet, a core principle of cloud data management. And so this is what we've built and we've brought to you. Now, I don't want to minimize the heart and soul of our platform, and that is Veeam Availability Suite. Now, I could be the one that stands up here and tells you about Veeam Availability Suite, but instead of that, I want to introduce you to the father of Veeam Availability Suite, the person who has been associated with this from the very beginning, my colleague, my friend, Anton Gostev. He's the vice president, senior vice president of product management. He's been with Veeam from the very beginning, knows all of the intricacies of that platform. And I'm going to turn it over to him to share with you some of the exciting things coming later on in 2020. Anton?
Thanks, Danny. Hi, everyone. My name is Anton Gostev. I lead the product management at Veeam, and I'm here to give you a sneak peek of what's coming in version 11 of our platform. Primarily, I'm going to be talking about features of Veeam Availability Suite version 11. Every demo that you're going to see today is live code of the current build. So we are pretty close to beta that we expect to release this summer. And of course, we're going to welcome our partners and prospects to join it as usually as we do the private betas. But let's jump straight in.
You guys have been busy.
Today, again, it's a sneak peek. Version 11 is a huge release, as usually with Veeam.
I feel like you just announced all this stuff at VMworld last fall.
3 areas. The first one is continuous data protection. Second one, our enhancements in object storage integration. Finally, major enhancements around instant recovery technology. All right, let's jump right in. So first, Veeam CDP. What is Veeam CDP? It's actually shortened from Veeam Continuous Data Protection. It's our proprietary technology to provide near continuous, essentially, data protection for your most critical VMs. So if you use VMware vSphere, and some of your VMs are probably more important than other, and you need to recover them very fast if they go down, and there's minimal data loss, that's exactly what Veeam enables, right? Veeam CDP allows you to recover instantly with minimal data loss, down to seconds, and while providing the normal SLAs, meaning it's a replica that's running from production storage, right? What are the benefits of Veeam CDP? Well, the first one, and one of the biggest, is no workload dependency. So we literally don't care what operating system or what application is running in VMs that you're protecting. We actually have a great demo later that shows this. Then there is no hardware dependency, so you don't have too much hardware between your primary side and disaster recovery side. It can be any to any. And finally, there is no extra costs. The Veeam CDP is included in the Veeam Universal license, and if you use socket licenses, that's Enterprise Plus edition. So we're really democratizing the DR by introducing this capability and no extra costs, right? Finally, last but not least, I like to say it's not a glassware, right? We took quite some time to polish it, but now we believe it's ready and will provide you the reliability and resiliency that you come to expect from our company. So where does it fit? Because we have so many technologies today in Veeam, so many recovery technologies, and many of them are instant, right? So where does this Veeam CDP fits? I created this table to clarify it, right? Very simple, like stoplight mode type of table, right? So let's talk about the first one. Restore from image level backup, most obvious, most straightforward, right? Of course, it takes lots of time. If it's a very large VM, terabytes in size, then it takes hours easily, right? That's why RTO is red. RPO is yellow because, yeah, you can back up pretty often. I know some customers backing up every hour, every 15 minutes. It works, but it still can go down to seconds. SLA is obviously yellow because you're running from production storage once you restored, and there is no IO constraints there, right? A slight twist to this is when you restore from transaction log backups. So you may restore image level backup and then restore transaction logs for your database, right? RTO is still in red, right? Because it takes a lot of time. Even if you don't restore a VM itself, the database restore, if a database is very large, can take a while, right? So RTO is still in red, takes time to restore. RPO is green because thanks to transaction log backup, we can minimize.
That's a design issue if you're running into that problem.
To primary storage, so
small databases replaying lots of logs over time.
Everyone's favorite is
longer period of time.
From image level backup,
better way to
right?
do it.
RTO is green because it's instant, obviously, right? RPO is the same. RPO is really defined by the backup, so it's still in yellow. And now I put SLAs in yellow because you're no longer running from production storage, you're running from backup repository. So obviously the SLAs from IO perspective is lower than from production storage. Now file over to classic replica. Again, RTO is in green because it's very fast. We just power on the replica VM. RPO again is defined by the classic way of doing backup with VMware snapshots. Again, the customers backing up replicating every 15 minutes. Still, you can go down to seconds. SLA is always in green for replicas because it's primary storage. And finally, Veeam CDP, all green, right? You recover instantly because it's replica. You recover to the latest point in time, so there's minimal data loss in seconds, and you're still running from production storage. Everything green, of course, you still have to pay for it, and that's the requirement. You're paying that with the bandwidth required to stream the IO almost near continuously, and proxy resources, because all the IO that happens, you basically have to pump through the proxies and send them to the offsite and so on.
Makes sense. And people that want that capability are going to be willing to pay for it.
Into the current technology set of Veeam. And finally, some highlights about the technology benefits of Veeam CDP, right? So first, it's asynchronous replication. So it means there is no physical distance limit that comes from synchronous replication provided by storage-based replication. The bandwidth requirements are also much lower than with synchronous replication, or for that matter, actually with regular replica, right? Because when you try to perform regular replica with very low RPOs, CDP will provide lower bandwidth requirements because we'll track the I/O not on a larger block level, but on actual I/O level. We'll consolidate I/O. So if the same block within that short period of monitoring is overwritten multiple times, we'll only send the latest state, contrary to synchronous replication that sends every I/O as it happens, right? Of course, we do traffic compression and we have native support for unreliable links, right? So in case the link breaks for a short period of time, you don't have to resync everything from the start. We provide flexible deployment models, so the Veeam CDP proxies can be virtual in a VM running on your source and target hosts, or you can actually have a dedicated physical CDP proxies if it's a large environment and you really want to take off the load, additional processing load that's caused by CDP proxies from your vSphere hosts, not to impact your production workloads, right? Then you can have the dedicated physical CDP proxy connected directly into ESXi hosts and pulling the data like that. Finally, it's policy-based, so much easier to set up. You don't create jobs, right? You just define the policy, your RPO, the desired RPO, and we'll take care of it, make sure it's met, right? And finally, to simplify the deployment, because the technology is very demanding in terms of bandwidth and CPU resources of the proxy, we actually provide built-in deployment calculator that analyzes the historical I/O for VMs you selected to be a part of policy, right? And then it will actually tell you how much bandwidth do you need to perform CDP protection at the specified RPO that you need, right? And whether your CDP proxy resources are adequate, right? So it makes it much easier to plan these CDP deployments, all right? So that's really briefly what our Veeam CDP technology is about, but let me now pass to Michael to actually demo it for you. Michael?
All right. Thanks, Anton. Let's see how easy it is to get Veeam CDP up and running in Veeam Backup and Replication version 11. Okay, let's start by creating a CDP policy from scratch. So we give it a name, and then we've got to choose the workloads that we wish to protect. So we can do this with virtual machines and just click them single, or we can use VM folders, or we can use data stores. In this instance, I'm going to use vSphere tags. So here I've got a tag called Tier 1, extremely important apps. Give it a next. Then we're going to choose where we're going to send those workloads as part of this CDP policy.
Is there a Tier 2 kind of important apps, but not really?
We're using vSAN, but we're completely agnostic to wherever that goes, whether it's VMFS or whether it's NFS or vVols. Then we need to choose our source and target proxies. And then we've got this test, which is going to check whether the CDP infrastructure, those proxies that we have, is capable of being able to deal with the RPOs that we require. Then we define our RPOs in seconds and minutes. Then we define how long do we keep those replication points for, and then how long do we keep those longer term retention for. Then we've got application aware processing if you wish, and let's get that started. So that policy should appear here any second. And then let's take a look at our vSphere environment. So over on the left-hand side, we have our production cluster. And over on the right, we have our disaster recovery site. And already you can see that the policy's created that demo VM replica. Then we look at the cluster level, and you can see that that's where the IO filter is installed. And you can see that that VM is using that filter. Then we get to the special demo VM, and as you'll see by the login screen, it may look familiar.
What?
And this is because Veeam CDP is not platform dependent.
I literally
and
just
it's
shivered.
Also a very
I'm
small
not
footprint.
kidding.
So as you can see on the desktop,
You
I have
can't
nothing
do that
on there
to
at
me,
the moment, and I really just want to simulate a very small test text document to just show how quick we can get that
Speaking
data
of being
over
in
to that
1998
secondary
again.
site and not worry about what that virtual machine, what that
Jesus.
operating system is.
That makes my
So
heart
let's
hurt.
quickly create a simple text document and save that to the desktop. And we're not condoning using Windows NT at all at this point.
Yeah, turn that
Let's
thing
simulate
off.
a failover now by pulling the power on that VM. And then let's head back into Veeam backup and replication.
Can you imagine life today
so now
without
we need
Active
to concentrate
Directory?
on the failover option that we have to get that machine back
In
up
the
and running
enterprise?
over in that disaster recovery. So if we right click, failover now, we then get to choose the restore point. And because we set that RPO to 15 seconds, we now have a slider which allows us to go back those 15 seconds at each individual point. So we can really be granular on what that looks like.
Brilliant.
Hit next, give it a reason, and that will start that process off. So we have a couple of seconds here whilst the restore session is becoming configured. So let's jump over into vSphere on that disaster recovery site. And side by side, we're going to see how we're going to stop that replication engine because there's nothing to grab because that production site is off. And we're going to see that demo VM underscore replica start to be powered up. So you can see now that the demo VM underscore replica is now powered up. Our faithful Windows NT machine should be powering on and starting that boot process. If we jump into there, there's the famous login screen. Let's give it a Control-Alt-Delete
Infamous
login. If you've ever tried using this without a mouse or VMware tools, then that's a little project that you can attempt yourselves. It's pretty tricky. So there you go. You see it on the desktop. We've got our VeeamON text file.
Nuke
We now
it
have
from
to
orbit.
think about our
It's the only way to
long-term
be sure.
options. Do we need to permanently fail over to the DR site as is now? Do we want to undo failover, or do we want to fail back to production? Now I want to fail back to production. So that means all of the changes that we've made since that replicate or since that first failover will now be replicated back to the original VM. We next have some options around scheduling or switching back over to that production site. So whether it's automatic, scheduled, or manual, we can choose. We have a bit more granularity on when we do that, and as well as powering on that VM when it's replicated over to that production site.
Do you have a way, Cade, to
So this is
tag
going to run
like
through,
events-based
and it's going to prepare that original VM.
major system changes,
and
anything
then
like
we've
that that'll
failed
track?
back successfully all of the
And you can
changes
just pick
since
that as a recovery point?
initial failure scenario. Before we go back to Anton, there's two things I'd
Or
like
do you have
to
to
remember.
know?
One is how simple it was to get things up and running, and secondly, it's all in one product. Back to you, Anton.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Excellent demo. So that's what we just saw was Veeam CDP. Again, first feature of version 11. But now let's talk about our enhancements in object storage integration, right? Probably for the last few conferences, I actually had this slide. I like to start with this slide, right? To show the evolution of scale-out backup repository because we keep enhancing it with every major release, right? So as you remember, we started by allowing you to join multiple independent different storage devices. That could be a totally different type, Dedupe, direct attach, NAS, into the single performance tier and have that as a single repository to really simplify the job management for you, right? That was the first step. As a second step, as you know, we added capacity tier, which allowed you to expand this local storage pool with virtually infinite capacity of either public cloud, right, or on-prem storage object device. That was like the first step, and then we added a bunch of features to capacity tier, right? First, we only allowed you to offload the oldest backup, then in version 10, we added the ability to immediately duplicate the backups to capacity tier for this 3-to-1 rule, right, and offsite copy. So that's where we are today in version 10. What's coming to version 11? Well, first, I'm happy to say that we are introducing support for Google Cloud Storage.
I was just about to ask.
Tier.
Thank you, Anton.
All the same features that we provide today that you see on the screen is now available for Google Cloud Storage. Had a lot of requests for this from certain industries, certain verticals, and I'm happy that we are now able to integrate with Google as well and give our customers more choice for the hot object storage. So that's the first feature. The second feature is actually we call it archive tier. So what's archive tier? it's a whole new kind of a tier of scale-out backup repository, and we made it a dedicated tier based on the based on how special the storage types that we're going to support with archive tiers are. And specifically, we're working on supporting Amazon Glacier, including Deep Archive, and Microsoft Azure Blob Storage Archive tier.
Don't sleep on the IFA buckets in S3.
These are
They're way better than
the
Glacier.
oldest object storage types that are available in the public cloud.
Almost in the same price point.
Paradigm comparing to what we use for hot storage for capacity tier. So if capacity tier is basically seamless extension, as you know, with Veeam, especially of your on-prem repositories, because even if the backups are moved to capacity tier, as you know, we can still perform the restore seamlessly from them. And that's included even instant VM recovery, as we demoed it a couple of months ago, right? So these coldest tiers of object storage are totally different in terms that the backups are not instantly available, right? You have to wait for literally hours to pull them back, right? So that's why they need totally different approach, so to speak, and we couldn't really integrate them in capacity tier, which is by nature the hot storage.
You couldn't get me to put anything in Glacier anymore at this point.
Really, the best use case for this cold storage
I'm at the whims of Amazon.
Are having GFS backups to it. I like to say the best use case for this coldest object storage types is write once, read never, right? So yes, it's where you want to move your oldest backups if you want to archive them for many years, right? You really don't want to restore them just because it's very costly to perform the restore, right? But it's a great choice for very long-term retention in terms of how cheap it is. So what I will be able to do with archive tier? Well, again, we're going to allow you to seamlessly move the old backups from capacity tier, GFS backups from capacity tier to archive tier. And we, again, allow you to do it as a policy, right? So you don't have to manage a separate job to do it. The scale-out backup repository will take care of it for you, right? We did a lot of optimizations on the costs because, again, these tiers of object storage are really optimized for the cheapest archival to keep the data for a long time, much data and for a long time. But where the vendor gets you, so to speak, is on restores, right? And also on operation costs, right? So if we would just to apply that to capacity tier approaches to archive tier, that would be incredibly expensive, right? With our 1 megabyte block size, which is the default. So we actually
very expensive, and it can take weeks sometimes to get it back.
Stand up automatically, of course, the small appliance.
That's why I'm saying S3 IFA
that actually takes the data from capacity tier, repackages it in much larger blocks, and puts it in archive tier. So we really took care of the fact that the costs are optimized. Now, because it's an archive, and that's an archive that sometimes will be stored for 5 or 10 years, right? We actually give you a choice how you want to store the backups there. So one option would be to store it in a similar way, not exactly the same, but similar way as capacity tier does. So, every next backup is actually increment from the previous one, right? But it introduces some dependencies, and maybe some customers will not like that, right? So, maybe you don't want this when you're storing your backups for 10 years. Maybe you want every archive backup to be completely independent, right? So you also have a choice actually to have every GFS backups offloaded to archive tier as a standalone full. So we give you this option.
That's cool.
Again, it's still self-sufficient because if you lost everything, just like with capacity tier, if all you have left is your backups on archive tier, you can still import them, restore them to Veeam. There is no dependency whatsoever on any data in either capacity tier or on-prem, right? And finally, there are actually no extra costs because we still, just like with capacity tier, we don't charge extra to use this functionality, right? So there is no any sort of tax if you decide to offload the backups to this coldest object storage devices, right? So now it's over to Michael to demo these two new enhancements of V11.
Thanks, Anton. So let's now show you the addition of Google Cloud Storage as well as the new archive tier in V11. So let's start by looking at the Google Cloud Storage configuration. So if we jump in here, obviously there's a name. We give our account credentials in our Cloud Credentials Manager, and then we choose our bucket and we choose a folder. We've also got the option to use nearline storage here as well.
Cool.
And that's it. That's us adding that backup repository. Then we want to add
Can I create a new bucket, or are you just pulling a bucket in from something I've already created in
backup
GCP?
Repository. So we're going to have our performance tier, which is local, and then we're going to have our capacity tier, which in this instance is going to be Google Cloud
what's
Storage.
On the UI, unfortunately.
So this is where we set that capacity tier. We have the option to both the copy mode and the move mode.
Yeah, okay.
And obviously you choose that Google Cloud Storage. Next, we have the archive tier. So again, we have to add a new repository, and in this instance, it's going to be under the Amazon Cloud Storage Services. This is where you're going to find Amazon S3 and also Amazon S3 Glacier. I've already created one, so we'll jump in there and just look at the configuration again. So again, a name, an account, and then the bucket and the folder that you wish to use, as well as being able to have the option of using Deep Archive for those backups as well if they go over that 180 days. We then have our proxy appliance, which lives in your Amazon account and is only used when that data is required to be frozen in that S3 Glacier. Then we add that into our scale out backup repository. Again, we have our performance tier, we have our capacity tier, which in this instance is S3, and then you'll also notice that we have the archive tier. And for demo purposes, I've set this to 0 just so I can show you some of that data within, and also some of these advanced settings that give you different capabilities. Now, if we start by looking at a backup job, so I have one created here for the demo, and when we get down to the storage, we're obviously pointing that to our backup repository. And then I also have this ticked where we're going to configure GFS on our backup jobs. This is important because this is where we're going to determine what gets put to the archive. So then over on the left-hand side, you're going to see an option for disk, for object storage, as well as this new tab, which is Object Storage Archive. And if we go into here, this is where you're going to see what is actually in the archive tier or in that S3 Glacier. We've also got this option of publishing it or bringing it back to the capacity tier first before being able to restore that. So there are 3 retrieval settings that we can set here: expedited, standard, and bulk. And they go in terms of how fast we can get that data back. And obviously each one will bring its own cost to that. So for this, expedited, then we've got how long do we want to actually keep that data in the capacity tier for. So we can define that here. And we can also say whether we want to send a notification email on that as well. Now I'm not going to hit finish because we don't have enough time to be able to do that. But that's the simplicity of bringing that data back from Glacier. Let's recap on what we've just seen. So we've seen the archive tier and how we can keep longer term retention archives in the public cloud. And we've also seen how we've added Google Cloud Storage to the capacity tier.
Thanks, Michael. Again, really excited about these new integrations for our object storage engine.
Yeah.
But let's move on and let's talk about instant recovery next. So instant recovery, of course, has always been the signature meal of Veeam. You know, we're famous for instant recoveries, and we keep pushing there and keep adding new exciting capabilities. And in fact, version 11 is probably the biggest release in terms of number of enhancements to instant recovery, right? And all these enhancements, they're really kind of in 3 areas. So the first one is we're introducing instant recovery of any backup to Microsoft Hyper-V. This is something we introduced for VMware vSphere in version 10 and was a great reception, right? And the top feedback was actually mostly from our service providers is that please deliver the same for Hyper-V, because as you know, we already have the capability to restore Veeam agent for Windows backups to Hyper-V, but no any other platforms, right? So version 11 will allow you to actually take any backup from Veeam, whether it's virtual, physical, even cloud backups, AWS, Azure, Nutanix, HP, and restore them in a virtual machine instantly as a Microsoft Hyper-V virtual machine. Why is it important, especially for service providers? Because they like to build essentially all-in-one DR appliances where the server, Windows server with Veeam installed with the storage, and deploy these appliances into the client environments. And they really want the ability that whatever workload the client is using, that they're able to take the latest backup and spin it off as a virtual VM in a Hyper-V that's running in that same DR appliance, right? And again, before that was limited to VeeamON for Windows. Now you can take any backup and do that very easily. So a really exciting feature. The next feature is enhancement for our NAS backup capability that we added in version 10, and that's in the ability to instantly publish the NAS backup content as a file share. So very simple use case, right? Especially for SMB, maybe your NAS device maybe dies, and those low-end devices then you don't usually have, redundant power supplies or redundant array controllers and so on. So if it dies, it dies. And what do you need to do now? I guess you have to acquire the new one. You have to restore the data, and all this time your user's just sitting there and waiting to access their data until you can do it. So that's exactly the scenario we're addressing, right? As soon as you lose your source NAS, you can just go into Veeam.
So basically, you can mount a backup as a sort of virtual NAS. Is that what that's doing?
Available on the specified server,
so that people can get at the files quicker rather than having to restore everything.
And at least start working on something, right? While you're figuring out that issue and restoring the data to your new production NAS. Really cool capability, but you should really see it to believe it. And it's over to you, Michael, to demo it.
Thanks, Anton. If this was in Vegas, this was going to be a very different demo. Let's take a look at another failure scenario instead. So here we have our NAS share. And as you can see, we've got a perfectly good blog post with some images and some clear text. Now what I want to do is simulate a ransomware attack on our NAS device, which is pretty topical out there at the moment. You see all of the modified files and everything is now encrypted. If we go in there, we can see that now doesn't look the same. It's been infected. So what we need to do, or what instant NAS recovery allows us to do, is publish a copy of our NAS backup out to our users, whilst we as an IT team can remediate against that. So if we go in here, we can choose our recovery point, a particular time. I'm just going to use the latest that is available. Then we're going to choose where we're going to mount this. So we can use any of our managed servers that we have within Veeam Backup Replication. And in this instance, I'm just going to use automatic because it's easier for the demo.
All right.
Then it's going to go through and it's going to make sure that we can validate all of the security so that we can get into the shares and also define user groups for security. And what this is going to do is going to mount this from the backup server and give access then, or you could give access out to your users so that they can access their files, their good files, before they were infected by ransomware. So if we go in here, we can open that file share, and now you can see that that document now looks like it did before the ransomware attack. Now the users can go about using that file, they can copy it locally, but at least they've got access whilst we're remediating this problem. So we've remediated that threat, and now we've got the rollback to a specific point in time, and this is available in the product today. Again, we're going to choose the last known good configuration, the last known good point, restore point, prior to the ransomware attack. And we're going to start rolling that back. And what you're going to see with the live share is those modified dates are now going to quickly roll back to what they were before. So then we complete this, we stop publishing the instant recovery, and then enable our users to get back up and running with the live version. What we saw there was how fast we can give access to our backup files to our users so they can access those shares, whilst in the background the IT team can be fixing those issues and no drills involved.
Thanks, Michael. Really excited, really liking this demo. Everything is works so fast, right? Just instant recovery, then that very quick restore when you're just rolling back the share. It's amazing. It's really, really instant. Can't be more instant than that. So that's what we saw is a second enhancement in our instant recovery technologies in version 11. Again, its ability to instantly publish the NAS backup as a file share. But even more exciting capabilities coming version 11 is actually instant recovery for Microsoft SQL and Oracle databases. And that's the technology I'm most excited about in version 11, right? So we're going to talk a little bit more about this. I have a couple of slides here. So how do you perform database recoveries today, right? Yeah, while customers, as I said, really love our instant recovery for VMs and servers, everybody realizes it doesn't fit database applications well, right? You can power on the database server fast, but then to actually restore a database to this point in time takes a while, right? Besides, if you use instant recovery, there's actually no granularity, right? You must restore all the databases if you accidentally drop a single database on the server. So it doesn't really work that well with this approach, right? Now, we do provide for a couple of versions now the ability to instantly publish selected databases, but the use case for that is very different, right? The use case is really dev test, right? You want to publish the database from last night's backup into your development lab environment, they make some changes, they're happy about them, they unpublish it, the changes are discarded, and they go ahead and make the same changes to production database, something like that. You kind of can use this publish functionality for restores, for sort of instant restore, but it's not, it doesn't work very well because if you just unpublish, you will lose all the changes that you made to the database that maybe some running applications or clients connecting made to the database, right? So you actually need somehow to move that modified state to the database environment. And the only way you can do it today is perform the backup, right? We allow you to backup published databases in a native format, and then go ahead and restore it to production server. Of course, if we're talking terabytes of data in the database, right, it takes hours, right? And it's just cumbersome, right? So this is what we're addressing with instant recovery. Again, that's a functionality that supports SQL and Oracle databases, and it allows you to do such recovery instantly and painless, right? I'm also going to have a diagram, but just a recap of the key features of database recovery, right? So you can really recover any database regardless of its size instantly to any production server or cluster. It can be virtual or physical. The database is essentially made available instantly as soon as you publish it. It appears on the network and clients can access it, and your production applications that use this database continue to work, right? Of course, the database now starts receiving changes, right? In background, as the database is already available to clients, we will automatically restore the database files onto the production storage, and then we're going to keep these restored files in sync with the actual database state that's currently running in production storage, right? Finally, at some time you have to switch over to break this dependency on instant recovery. And this switch over essentially happens with minimal downtime, right? It can be done manually. It can be done automatically. You can say, as soon as you're ready to switch, as soon as the delta between what's on production storage and the state of the published database is minimal, just perform the switch over for me. Or you can say, I want to schedule switch over at 1 a.m. next night because that's my maintenance window. We support all this, right? But the downtime is really minimal because it's essentially just starting and stopping the database. Stopping and starting. Here is a diagram how it works. I chose SQL Server because it was a little bit harder to implement for SQL Server.
Yep. For
Oracle, we use some native functionality to duplicate the database. It was a little bit easier. This was more challenging, so it's more interesting to dive into. So again, imagine the situation that you dropped a very important database from your production server. You have the backup. You did the backups, with transaction log backup, so you can easily restore to a point in time. How do we do it instantly? So first thing we do when you initiate instant recovery is we actually publish the database files from the backup repository onto the database server, right? Then we recreate a database based on the metadata that we saved when we backed up the database, right? And we point it to the emulated files. And at this point, database can start and it will start running. The clients will start accessing it, and some clients may be only reading the data, other clients may be also writing the data. So, there are changes incoming into these files. Of course, we cannot apply them to the files because they are read-only. They publish it from the repository. So we also create a write cache, and this write cache accumulates all the changes, right? So that we can continue running correctly without trying to write anything into these read-only backup files, right? In parallel with that, so again, the database already published, it's live, right? all is good. In parallel, that will automatically start the restore process and will restore the same point in time from backup repository to database file on your primary storage. So where you would normally run your database off of, right? That's what we do. When the restore completes, we have the complete copy, but of course it's outdated. It's already from that restore point, but again, remember we already went far ahead, right? Because some clients were making changes to the database. So we now need to make sure that the database files on primary storage catch up with the actual state. So what we do is we'll automatically start a sync of the write cache into this database file. So we'll periodically go and apply all these changes into the database files. And we can remain in this state for a long time. It can be an hour, it can be a day, it can be a week, right? Until you're ready to switch over. During all this time, we'll really keep these emulated files and database files very much in sync, right? Very close to each other. So when switchover comes, again, you can do it manually, you can do it ASAP, or you can do it at scheduled time. What happens, right? Well, first, of course, we stop the database, right? Then we do the final sync, very small delta of the write cache into the database files. And write cache is gone because we already synced all of its content into the database files, right? Next, we actually no longer need the published files. So we remove the publish and we reconfigure the database, just deploying it to the database files on primary storage. Now, it sounded a little bit long. What you should realize, it really happens in a matter of in a split second, right? That what happens is basically we power on the database, we reconfigure the database settings to point to the new files, and we immediately start it. So, probably it's just that you can consider it takes the same time as just a regular restart of the database, pretty much. So this is the whole kind of workflow, and we went from not having database in production available to clients to having it instantly available, and then it was available all the time, and then a very short downtime. Either you can tolerate the downtime, but I expect most customers will just basically wait until next maintenance window. We perform the switchover, and switchover is as fast as stopping and starting the database. Let's see the demo. Michael, over to you.
Thanks, Anton. So publishing your database back to your test and dev is so last year. Let's show you what instant recovery for your databases actually looks like. In order for me to show instant database recovery, I've got to be pretty dramatic, and we've got to drop this database completely. Clean delete from the SQL Server. As you can see, that's now gone. No access to database. If we now jump over to Veeam Backup Replication, luckily I have a SQL job that's running there, you can see. Then we want to go through the restore wizard. So select vSphere, select restore from backup. This isn't just for vSphere, but it's just my lab. Select Microsoft SQL. This is going to open our Veeam Explorer for SQL. We're going to choose our SQL 2019 machine, but this will work also for older versions of SQL. I've tested it on 2008. So now we get our Veeam Explorer for Microsoft SQL, and you can see in there that we've got that one database, that very important database. Now it's important to note that publish the database, which is there in today's version, and this is more so used for test and dev type environments, but it's instant recovery of the database that we want to actually do. Now this is going to publish it, or this is instantly going to recover it back to that live SQL box. Now what this does is enable us to do the storage migration underneath while still having the database live on the actual database server. So we can choose scheduled, auto, or manual. I've gone for auto because it's just going to do it in the background. It's going to get us back up and running as fast as possible, and then it's going to enable the storage to be migrated over. Okay, so down in the bottom right, you can see the action panel. You can see that we're copying target files, we're publishing that database. This takes about 25-30 seconds. If we jump over to our SQL box again, by now we're definitely going to refresh and we're going to see that database back under our list. which ultimately means that now all of our users have access back to that restore point that we once had. In the background, though, we're still migrating those target files back over into what most likely is performant production storage. You can see there that we're just about attaching that target database or just migrating the last.
Is this replaying
element
logs?
That database.
So you get it back up online, but they might be dealing with dated data
to function.
But you're just
have that
as part of the backup. You have the
database.
logs, so you're replaying those logs
finished.
from that recovery
That's a
point.
super simple and fast way of being
brilliant.
able to demonstrate instant recovery of your databases for both SQL, but remember it's also there for Oracle as well.
Thanks, Michael. Really amazing demo. Really cool technology. I believe Veeam is first to market with something like that. So I'm really excited about this. So we talked today about Veeam Availability Suite version 11. I gave you a sneak peek of only 3 major features. There are many more, as usual, there are over 100 of features. But again, to recap, what you saw today is we keep investing heavily in the on-prem workloads. We'll take it to the next level with allowing anybody to use Veeam CDP for the most critical workloads, right? Again, we really do believe in object storage, and we keep enhancing the object storage integration there significantly with Google Cloud Storage support, and as well as the whole new archive tier.
Don't forget about
of
storage
Skeleton repository
grid.
that is designed to support the coldest tiers of object storage available in the public cloud. And finally, we really keep pushing and enhancing our instant recovery capabilities and delivering as 3 major features for restore anything instantly to Hyper-V VM, for instant ability to instantly publish NAS backup as a file share to give your users instant access to data when NAS device is lost. And finally, we're delivering the first to market capability to perform instant recovery of SQL and Oracle databases. But there is one more thing I need to tell you about.
Oh, that makes me miss Steve.
Judging by the line, maybe
June
already
22nd,
guessed,
WWDC,
yes,
by the way.
We're talking about Veeam Agent for Mac. It's a new agent in our large family of agents. This is something we're working on, and we're hoping to deliver the first version along with version 11 to allow you to perform managed backups of your Mac workstations or servers if you have servers, using that single Veeam Backup application console with managed jobs. All right. So that's not it for today, but that's the end of this particular session. Thanks for attending this technical keynote, and have a great rest of this virtual VeeamON 2020. Thanks.
Thank you, Anton. And Michael and Melissa and Danny, thank you all for that. That was really good. Thoroughly enjoyed that. Let me get a little... Oh, wow, it just closed the window. Okay. All right, then. Well, you guys get to see my crazy Dragon World of Warcraft thing there. So, for everybody in the chat, there's about 15, 20 of you in here. I'm curious what you guys... I've got a lot of notes. Some of them I want to talk about over the course of the next 15, 20 minutes or so, because I got a lot to say. I got a lot of questions, and I've been writing them down, and I've been saving them, and a couple pages worth. So, Cade, Melissa, Spiteri, if you're still in here. All right. And anybody else watching, feel free to throw your questions in the chat. I'm sure they would love to get to them. What'd you say there? It was meant to make me miss Steve with the Mac. It did. I'm becoming verklempt. I will say that as someone who was a massive Apple fanboy for more than a decade, Steve is sorely missed at Apple right now. And that's all I'm going to say. There's a reason my MacBook Pro has basically been relegated to a crash cart workstation with a console cable. All right. So during Danny's opening keynote, there was a bit where he was talking about the use of data and how most data is very private. And I can't remember exactly what Danny was saying right off the top of my head, but there was a thought that popped into my head about democratizing data. How do we get to it? We all keep all of this data everywhere, on our mobile devices, social media profiles, on our computers, everywhere we go, wearables, IoT devices. Where and when are we as a society and as technologists going to draw the line between what's okay? The government seems to be doing that for us now, and we had Snowden back in 2012, 2013 with all of that going down, exposing what the government was doing with all of our data. But we're past that to an extent. We all understand that what we do on a day-to-day basis is out there now. So at what point do we begin to make that useful for us, not just for the government? So the thought that I had that popped up, and maybe this is worth a blog post at some point. Maybe this is worth an opinionated commentary video for me for the YouTube channel. But all right, fine. You're gonna get all of my data. I want to make it useful for everybody, not just you, NSA, not just you, DoD. So how do we do that as companies? How do we, if the ISPs and the tech companies are all collecting all of our data and it's all shareable under warrant and all of that anyway, well, okay, let's make it all useful. How do we take all of the backups that we have? How do we take all of the data that we have and turn it into something useful that's not just spyware of the future? Just a random thought that I had, and it's something I'm going to ruminate on a lot because it's something that we need to talk about as technologists and as people that are managing data and making software that manages companies' data. We oftentimes do our very level best to do everything to completely lock it down, protect it, encrypt it, triple encrypt it, DoD, FIPS encryption, just all of this stuff. Use it to predict crimes. I'd like to use it to monitor social media for people that are struggling and are considering taking their own life. It's a very things that are people that are talking on social media that are talking about shooting up a school. I like some of the work that's going on around contact tracing for coronavirus. Some of it, not all of it, some of it. POI reference. Yeah. I wish I had that. I liked the joke software-defined tape backup, but I'm wondering if there's a realistic use case there. And the thing that popped in my head was in Final Cut. Here, let me show you. We'll have props today. Some of you that have watched my live streams know that I have a lot of cameras. And my history with cameras goes way back to at least the 2000s. This is a Canon XH-A1. It's basically a paparazzi camera, if you think about it. You can handhold it. You can shoot with it like that. It's a handy cam. It's a big handy cam. But one of the downfalls of it is it uses tapes, right? I keep this around in case I ever need to plug a cable into it and hook it up and be able to try to do anything video related with Nikon. So whatever, we'll come back to that. I've had this around for a long time, long time, and I keep it around because it is tape. It's HDV, uses HDV tape, 24p. The thing that I started to think about when I ingest tapes, Final Cut has a native format where it will ingest an archive of a tape into a proprietary file format. And I had this thought, and I was just, well, couldn't we do virtual tapes in that same kind of fashion? Couldn't we convert tape libraries of yesteryear into digital files of today as a archive format? and then save those larger 2 to 4 terabyte files. I thought we could, and that's why I was bringing it up. I don't think it gets talked about enough. I think people still leave their Iron Mountains and stuff in place with 10 years of tapes and drives sitting in there. I understand. That's not, I know we can do it. The point I was getting to is, why don't people do it more? Why would they rather just pay the monthly Iron Mountain bill or data center bill, colo bill, to maintain their tape rotations? What's the one part we're missing? And I'd love to hear from the Veeam community and from the members of Veeam themselves. What do you find that customers are is it a people problem? Is it resistance to change? Is it they don't have enough time to address the issue, so they just keep doing things the same way to maintain because they can barely keep their head above water? Those are the little things that I think about. Like, how can we fix that? How do we make that easier? How do we modernize data protection? You guys are doing a fantastic job at Veeam, tackling a lot of that. Some of the stuff we saw today and that we've seen in the recent years especially is just, above and beyond what people associate with you guys, which is VM backups. You've come leaps and bounds from where you were 10 years ago. They're going from tape to storing data in object storage. Some use VTL, but object storage is the future. Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. But you know what? I don't know if people have an appetite or an understanding of the conversion of an Iron Mountain bill to a bill from AWS or Azure or Google. I don't know how many times I've walked into an EBC and I've had that conversation, the very one that you're describing there, Michael, and what I was sort of alluding to about someone moving away from a tape library rotation. And I pitched them 2 options. I was like, well, hey, you've got a couple of options here. We can set you up on-prem with a storage grid. Cost you a few $100,000 and some licenses. Or you can get a monthly bill, just like you do from Iron Mountain. You can get a monthly bill, and we can have your FAS just send it up to the cloud. Tier it automatically. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing. Why? I can't help you. That's ultimately what it comes down to. Okay. Let's move on. This conversation is going to go nowhere. Let's move on. Because at that point, it's all I can do is go out and make videos and write blog posts to tell people why that's a bad idea. I can't. Tape's not dead, period. Roadmap goes out to LTO 12. What is it on now? 10? I haven't touched a tape in over 10 years. Full disclosure. The cost of rehydrating and migrating is why they aren't doing it. I think it's a yes, but that's more of a knowing what you don't know conversation and proper design. But a fair point, Mark. Absolutely. Did you drop into the wrong thread? Keith, this isn't the VMware shop. What are you doing here? We're talking about backups, dude. Backups. We're going to get to the good stuff. It was just some thoughts that I had. I had a question about earlier, and I tried to ask it, where do you hook into Teams? For the Veeam today announced Teams backup. I guess technically it was yesterday. Where actually do you hook into it? I'd like to understand, are you just authenticating directly into the Office 365 environment, and if they have Teams configured and are using it, you can check a box to go grab it? Is it a certain set of data and metadata within a SharePoint organization? I've never really looked at the architecture of SharePoint of Teams and how it integrates with. I know where the files are, and that's got a SharePoint backend, and I understand all that. It's exactly that? Okay. I hate SharePoint so much. The funny thing is I think that could be where, we saw Cisco Tuesday talk about their new stuff. Did I watch the demo? I'm sorry, I couldn't see it. It was like I was watching TV in 1994. Not your fault. I can't wait to see the actual video. Veeam backup for AWS. I've been behind on a lot. A lot's been going on the last 6 months. I hadn't even looked at V1 yet. My apologies. This looks incredible. This might be my favorite thing that I saw all day. No offense to anybody. I have a couple of questions and 1 point. How about chat on the new VA? We'll get there. Because this isn't the NetApp watch party. We'll get there. We'll get there. I love VA. We'll get there. It's next. I'm here. We got to get down to here. So just hang on. Veeam backup AWS V2. The note that I wrote down, big check mark, cost exposure. Awesome. I'd like to know what numbers you're using, if you're pulling that uniquely from each customer's account somehow. Are they estimates? Are they published list prices for each of the things that are in there? How are we getting those numbers? Pulling it from the AWS cost estimator. Is that taking into account... No, probably not, because you're probably not going to have access to that. This is something we've been trying to crack too, for what it's worth. Is what's the best way to present this? What can we actually get to? Various customers are going to have private offers. They're going to have deals. They're going to have long-term EAs. How do we properly show that? That's really what that got to for me. I really wanted to understand. It's using the AWS APIs and the cost estimator. Cool. Okay, let me make a note of that real quick. V2 is much more economical than V1 with snapshot harmonization and change block. Yeah, change block tracking. That was cool. Okay, so it came from there. All right, so my only other thing was more of a point of feedback. At the very end of the wizard, you showed that you can click on a link and it'll do your permissions tests. One of the biggest problems with AWS is identity and access management. I would almost do that automatically as part of the wizard. As sort of your final, put up a blank screen and do checking permissions as a poll. Do the dry run before they're allowed to finish and create the job. Brings it up in the beginning too. Yeah. So I've never run into any problems as maddening as I am in AWS. But I wouldn't leave it as a optional click when somebody was creating a job. I think you guys get what I'm saying there. All right, VAO. AWS backup looks fantastic. What really well done job, guys. You automate that checking as well? It looked like a link that you had to click on in order to do it, but you could finish the job without doing it. I'm saying enforce the checking of permissions before you can finish the job. Okay. I'll grab that on YouTube and share that. I want to go check it out too. You mean the VPC making sure traffic's not leaving AWS? Oh, okay. Okay. Veeam Orchestrator. VAO. This needs... I can't do this justice in the next 5 minutes. I want to spend some time with Cade. I want to spend some time with the product. I want to look at this and play with this and do videos on this. I'm very excited about this. Very, very excited about VAO. Some of the stuff. Melissa's the one for VAO. Melissa, we're gonna hang out because if you're willing, I would absolutely love to take a deeper dive tour on how that integration works and all of that stuff as well. So, yeah, I have so much I wanted to bring up there, but I think I wouldn't be able to do it justice unless we went deeper on it. What did I write down here? I wrote down for Veeam Availability Suite. What I wrote down for Orchestrator, VAO, verifiable recoverability. That was the big takeaway for me. So before you even run a job, or as part of running a job, we've always had verifications in backups. Right? It's pretty standard. The other thing that stood out to me was, and I don't remember exactly where this was. I think it was in VAO, but I had the ability to put an app owner's contact information in that wizard, in that job. So me being the backup operator or the admin, I don't have to get woken up at 3 a.m. when the job fails for Oracle. That was cool. Yes. They can get the backup reports for their app. It's not something they're going to be sitting there tapping their foot at 8:30 waiting for me to get in and generate for them. It can just go straight to them. And I can do it on an individual per job, per application basis. VAO orchestration plans. Yeah, okay. We definitely need to hang out and talk about that more, because there's a lot more to that than I think what you were able to quickly go over in the demo. There's a lot of real life scenario kind of stuff there that I think people gloss over and don't think about when we're seeing things on screen versus what day-to-day operations of a data center actually look like. That's powerful. And then you include things like we've got backups for cloud, we've got backups for storage arrays, we've got backups for applications, we've got servers and VMs, and all of this coming in an array of jobs. I know it's stuff that you at Veeam all eat, sleep, and breathe every day, all day, but not enough people that actually run data center operations do, unfortunately. They just think Microsoft's backing up their entire Office 365 and they don't have to care about it. Nope. Okay. Why did I write down... I think I wrote down universal license underneath availability suite. I'm not sure if that was a new announcement that Anton was talking about to include CDP. Kate, I think that would be yours. It's not new? Okay. It's new to me, I guess. Something that stood out. So does the universal license is sort of an all-encompassing, I can back up anything to anywhere, and it's just, I've got everything Veeam. Basically means free. I like free. I think everybody likes free. Didn't I bring a Powerade up here? Son of a bee. Universal license means you can have a flexible license. Cloud on day 1, VMware on day 90. Okay. So it can move between protected objects. Is it like a managed units thing, kind of like how we do Cloud Insights? We're paying for a number of managed units. An instance license, you buy X amount. Okay. Yeah, all right. So it's, well, yeah, it's not socket-based anymore, which nobody likes that. CDP, I don't want to prejudge. CDP felt a lot like software-defined SnapMirror, and I don't want to prejudge it. But I want to put a date down, Cade. Maybe even you and I could collab on a live stream, and we could like pull up an environment, talk about it, and talk through it, and to really go into what it is and what it isn't. The other thing I wanted to say was, we've been beating that horse for 20 years. Is there actually anything else that can be done? I understand not everybody has NetApp arrays. I completely understand that. And you guys are sort of bridging a gap with a more agnostic, software-based approach there. Yeah, you can do synchronous snap mirror. You have to manually fail over. Kind of. Not really, but kind of. Yeah, there's going to be a manual amount of failover that happens anyway, in any sort of... Unless you're fully metro clustered and HA'd on a same campus and all that. There's going to be a small amount of manual checking, manual work that goes into it. I mean, unless you're just the most badass orchestrated shop out there. And I don't know many of those. Excuse me. Getting a little dry in the throat. All right. So, Melissa, if you're willing, I'd love to hang out and talk about VAO more. Cade, if you're willing, I'd love to hang out and talk about VAS some more. Archive tier. I'm saying what I'm saying because... And yes, it was 10 years ago, but I feel like it's still, the theories and the practices are still relevant. We did a lot with SnapMirror, and we did a lot with snapshots at the healthcare company I worked at before I joined NetApp. And we were Iron Mountain tape guys. Small shop, big data center. Or small staff, big data center. Especially once we virtualized, we went down from 4 people to 2. Didn't need it anymore. One of the things that I learned very quickly about Iron Mountain and restoring tapes and cataloging tapes is that it was very slow. Especially once the tapes get up into the 4 terabyte and above range. Now I think we're up to dozens, if not hundreds of terabytes on tape that you can put on there. The last thing I ever wanted to do was have to call Iron Mountain because I knew that I was going to lose the rest of the day. If I had to call Iron Mountain to get a tape back, it might take them... They had a 4-hour SLA window that they could to get the tape back to me. So there was that. And then I was going to be sitting around waiting on net backup to catalog the friggin' tape. What I'm scared about with Archive and Glacier is that exact same thing. You couldn't give me Glacier for free. I will never, ever. And we were a healthcare company. We had original copies of the database from 1995, the inception of the company and the platform. You couldn't, there's no way in hell I would put the oldest of oldest backups in Glacier. Even that. No way. Because if I did need something back from it, it could take weeks. Weeks. Not hours. Not a day. Weeks to get that stuff back. So the comments that I was making, don't sleep on the cheapest tier of IFA buckets in S3. Those are somewhat instantly recoverable. You might not get the most throughput. You're going to eat a little bit of egress, pulling it out, but it's fast. It's pretty fast. It's not an EBS volume, but it's fast enough. So just a thought. Just a thought. Some people use Glacier and they love it. I'll never touch it. Not because the storage is bad. The service is not good. And people can make the argument, oh, it's only our oldest backups from 5+ years ago. Healthcare. You know what the most common... And we had a giant worm system with SnapLock and with storage arrays and all of that kind of stuff going on. The malpractice suits all the time. You know what they were? Data from 5+ years ago. Just some considerations there. The capacity tier can use infrequent access. Okay. I would just do that then. I would also give that option for the archive tier, though. I think is what I was getting to. Don't limit people to just Glacier. There's no reason not to include the cheapest of cheapest IFA buckets as part of the archive tier. Don't relegate them to Glacier if they don't want to have to use that. And don't give them a reason not to use your software for their archive tier if they also have an aversion to Glacier like I do. Give them the option. People don't need to use archive tier. Make sure it comes across that way. I hear you saying it in chat. The archive tier could be any S3 bucket. It was presented as if it was Glacier or bust. So maybe fix that or talk to Anton about how that's pitched, or because that's the way it came across, was Glacier or nothing. Glacier or blob. No. Added Google Cloud. I asked you this in chat. You must add the buckets in GCP first before you can bring them into any jobs. So you can't, even though you have my credentials, you can't create the bucket directly within your interface. I want to make sure I had that right. That was the announcement because we already have S3 today. Okay. So the announcement was that in addition to S3, you can now also support Glacier. The way that the slide laid out, it looked like that S3 was part of the capacity tier, and there was a new tier that was being added called the archive tier that had Glacier and Azure Blob. So it didn't in any way use S3 in the conversation of the archive tier. I hear you saying it in chat, but my point is it might not come across that way. Zanal, welcome. Thanks for subscribing. Welcome to the channel. And the only other note I had on the archive stuff was congrats on adding Google Cloud. It was funny. I was sitting there going, when I was watching, I was going, where's Google Cloud in this whole thing? And he goes, and we're proud to announce today the addition of Google. Well done. But the one thing, yes, I'll throw back at you is you have to add the buckets first in G. Do you have to also have to do that with S3? You have to configure those, or is there a way to create the buckets directly as part of the job creation wizard, or you have my credentials, you should be able to create assets. Just a thought. Let me make sure I got Skype up here, see if old Rickatron's about ready. No, you have to create the buckets, but we can create folders. Okay. I think that's a fair trade-off, because there can be many things using that bucket that aren't related to you, but if you want to put your folders in there for deep archive, sure. What was the other thing? Instant recovery. The only one I really wanted to say about a lot about here was the database stuff. Restore any backup to Hyper-V in Azure. Cool. Publish NAS contents in a virtual NAS. I think that's really cool. The idea to spin up a home drive and to just allow, while you're restoring it to somewhere that you can sort of present almost like you're a file server yourself. That's really cool. Let's see. Instant database recovery. This is another one, Kate, that I want to go through a little bit more. One of the things that I had to learn how to do, we took the backup and recovery of our Oracle database, and this was 2010, so take it with a grain of salt compared to today, but we were using Snap Manager for Oracle from NetApp on NetApp Arrays. It was hosted on, I think there were 12 volumes that were mounted to this Oracle instance. And it was log 1, log 2, U01, U02 for your binaries and data. Typical Oracle layout, and we had a bunch of redundancies built into it. And each of those volumes and redundancies were synced over off-site to another location. So if everything shit the bed, we would at least have the redo logs and last night's copy of the backup, right? And we could replay everything and recover it in a few hours. When we found Snap Manager for Oracle, our backup window that we had been using with DataGuard and RMAN that used to take 8 hours went down to less than a minute. It was so bad that I had to prove that it was an actual legit copy of the instance. I had to prove it to the board. It was such a drastic change. The ability to they didn't believe me. They thought I was just snapshotting the volumes. I kind of was, but we were also moving it off-site with, not SnapMirror. Oh, Nick. The other one, the backup one. We were moving it off-site, and I can see people, had I had the cloud that we know and love today, then there are other things I would have done, but we were moving it off-site with SnapMirror. It was taking the snapshots. Vault, yes, thank you. Sorry, guys. We were using Snap Vault to move it off-site and to cascade it. So we would take the backup onto another array, move that over, and then the Vault would cascade and mirror off to an off-site. Right? They didn't believe me. So I fired a virtual machine up on a completely different network, on a completely different set of hosts, and restored it with Snap Manager for Oracle, with SMO. And it stood up, and they ran one command to replay all their logs in, and it was done in about 90 minutes. 2 terabyte database. Where am I going with this? I'm scared of anything that says instant database recovery. Because I spent years trying to get it as near instant as possible, and I know how nearly impossible that is to do. The idea of emulating something that is also creating new data whilst old data is being replayed scares the living shit out of me. As a data guy. I don't want nothing else, especially for something that's like as central and as big as an Oracle instance can be. So, again, something else that I want to be convinced otherwise of, that I want to talk more to. I have to accept the fact that not everybody has a NetApp array that they can take advantage of. A lot of the technologies we've built. I also I've come to terms with the fact that in today's cloud world, you don't really need one anymore either. And it's kind of better to have a sort of agnostic approach to it. Let's get old Rickatron on the phone here. Hang tight, guys. You're probably going to see the stream drop for 1 second. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Rick Vanover from Veeam. Hang tight.
The right.
All right, we're going live, by the way.
All right.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Are we live? Have I got you?
I'm alive. I think.
Oh, I got to reset my DAC. Okay, 1 second. Did that get it? Did that clear it up, Steven? Yep, good to go. All right. So I'm going to do a quick little intro, guys, so that we can transition here because I do want to put this up as a separate video. So for all of you that watch the stream, Rick, thank you for joining me this afternoon.
Hey, no problem.
Greg says hi. Rickatron in the chat has joined us. So I'm going to do a quick little intro here. We're going to dive in as if this is sort of a quick talking topic so I can record it later. But here we go.
Let's do it.
Hey, guys, thanks for joining us. Oh, nope. I'm going to start over because I got to turn the music down. It's way too loud. There we go. Watch your boom, Rick. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
What's up, guys? Nick Howell here, Data Center Dude, coming to you for the after party from VeeamON. And I'm joined by special guest, Mr. Rick Vanover, who is the Senior Director of Product Strategy over at Veeam. Rick, thank you very much for joining me today on this after party for VeeamON. How's your last couple of days been?
Oh, I don't even know if I'm alive, Nick. It's been crazy. I had trouble going to sleep. I had no trouble waking up last couple of days. I'm almost in the home stretch. And, I don't know if this is a good idea or a bad idea, but we had 3 concurrent broadcasts. Well, not necessarily concurrent, but like a Europe, an Americas, and an APJ broadcast. So I'm living like this kind of triplicate life right now. I think at one point I was quadruple booked yesterday. So it kind of hurt.
Yeah, this is my 3rd watch party that we've done, and for some reason the entire tech community decided to book on top of you guys in SAP this week.
So Cisco, just random people doing things.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it honestly, we're at a situation where it almost may be overload, right? It's too much because there's no barrier of entry, right? We had over 28,500 people register for this event. Yeah, I was like, whoa.
For a little silly VM backup company, am I right?
Exactly. Who cares about backup? Yeah, but,
right. Me.
Yeah, me too. But, it's an opportunity to reach new people, I think there's a lot of people right now taking in the virtual conference and like, okay, which ones do I like and want to, invest in next year, that type of thing.
Yeah. It's a great sort of sample pool of I don't get to go to all of these conferences. I don't get to see all of these shows if I'm an end user, but now I'm kind of getting all of them for free for giving the company my email address, which they probably already have anyway. And I get to attend all of this stuff, see the keynotes, maybe not in the same fashion. So it's a funny that you brought that up. It's one of the things I wanted to kick this conversation off with. You and I have been going to these shows for more than 10 years and beyond at this point.
Yeah, this was my 10th year at Veeam, and even before that, I got the bug, addicted to the drug of technical evangelism, around 2007 and VMworld, and the community was born there, and a lot of things have changed, right? I changed jobs since then, but I've holding steady here. But it's like you want to take it all in. It becomes time management. The social angles help. It's an overload. It's a lot to filter through. But it's needed today, Nick. I really feel that we live in a world today with these mechanisms, online events, social media, where we can interact with people. Product managers. Gone are the days where you only have your local SE.
Right.
So I think the
That's a good point.
tech community has so much more to work with now. It's awesome.
The question I was going to ask for you, though, is what's missing? Because I did a video recently on my thoughts on virtual events, and a lot of it had to do with everything that we're not doing on virtual events. It's the networking events. Veeam is infamous for their parties at VMworld and other events throughout the year. We don't get those anymore. I miss them already.
So there's I can come up with 3 pros and 3 cons for the current conditions, right? And from a pro standpoint, we doubled our target, right? And like nearly almost 10 times what we would have expected in person. Okay, so that's a good thing. We are able to deliver more content at less cost, right? We're not traveling, and it's smart in the current conditions, right? So then, and the other side is we're making this accessible to new people. Okay, so those are the good things. Now the bad. Okay, what's missing? There's a certain level of intensity in just interhuman connection that comes with these things. And I'm going to tell you a backup joke, Nick. Those of you,
oh boy,
yeah, exactly. It fits the occasion. So anybody who's used Veeam, and actually other backup products, there's this term called a synthetic full backup.
yeah,
It's it's kind of smart. If I have a full backup from last week in 6 increments, I can do some math and work on backup IO and create a synthetic full backup. When I think of interpersonal relationships, first introductions, there's no such thing as a synthetic first backup, right? That first touch has to be real. That first, we can be distanced, right? But it has to be real, right? So there's this interaction element that's missing, the social element. Now, we've got Keith Urban playing later tonight for the concert. And actually, it's the second concert I've done like that. I had one a couple weeks ago. And it's different, I am actually in the office. I'm not going to crack out a beer and watch it, but some people have. But, I'm like, is that what I want to, it's just not the same. It's not the same as a party, back to the first point. And then the third point is, and this is a weird phenomenon, Nick. I have a little side hustle here at Veeam where I kind of help out the event team. Okay. I guess the proper name would be an agenda manager for the technical content. But we have some of the same problems that we do at in-person events. So it's like, just because it's online doesn't mean other problems go away, right? So those are some things that are missing and not working.
You still have to wrangle all of the content creators to make their decks and line them up and do mock presentations and all, right?
Yeah.
All of that process still happens, but
it's just the same problem in a different way. It's crazy.
You and I can't walk out of the expo hall and walk 3 blocks and go to the Chieftain and have a beer and that kind of stuff. And I'm sorry, we're not going to replace that with Zoom happy hours.
No,
that experience is not. It's not going to happen. So what I've seen our events team scrambling with a little bit is, what do they do now? They can only do what they were responsible for previously in putting the expo hall together, lining up speakers, having guests, whether they're celebrity or other, in the booth, putting on networking events and things like that. None of that stuff is happening right now.
Yeah,
and it almost feels like there's a scrambling across many companies right now to try and figure out how to do this virtual event thing the right way.
Or what's the difference maker that will make someone step above, right? And I'll be the first to admit everybody has been hurried with this, right? When, within the last 3 months, it was basically a situation where everything has to change, right? So you rush into this new model. It's not the opportunity to innovate and deliver the best experience, right? So that's the challenge. And then you look back and forth and you're like, well, how long are we going to be like this? Who knows, right? But I don't know what that next level experience would be. I mean, I'll be honest with you, Nick, I'm so thankful that we are where we are from a technology standpoint with these conditions. Could you imagine? We both have some gray hair. You've got more of it, but we both have it. I've been
the hair, not the gray.
You've got. I don't know. We'll see. I mask my gray. I'm in a different way. Okay,
gotcha.
But
you shave it off.
Yeah, exactly. Without it being there, I need to cut. But that's another thing. But anyways, you and I have been in IT a while. I don't know how long you've been in, but for me, I started my IT career in the 90s, and if everything was cut off and we had to work from home, I mean, there just wouldn't be work. Okay, the remote access technologies weren't there. Teleconferencing wasn't
closest
there.
thing we has was the Nextels, the dig-a-dig. That was the, or even before that, pagers, right?
Modems. I look back to my old company. I remember it's like, man, I'm really going to have trouble getting money to get 6 phone lines installed for the dial-in bank. Imagine if all at that company, 100 people were dialing in remotely. It just, if we had this problem 30 years ago, 25 years ago, imagine how different it would be, Nick. It's just the mobile devices, Wi-Fi connectivity, so many things are working for us to help us kind of stretch through this rough patch. And I look at what Veeam's doing, and data capture, that's all changed. Data's being created in new places, so we just want to make sure people don't lose data. So,
well, let me throw something at you real quick. So we just finished watching here live on the stream in the watch party. We just finished watching the day 2, the 90 minutes with Danny, Melissa, Michael, and Anton, doing all of their demos and everything like that. Fantastic job by everybody, by the way. Veeam backup for Teams backup for AWS version 2, VAO version 3, VAS Suite, and the newly introduced archive tiers and instant recoveries.
Mac agent. Yeah.
And the one more thing,
Yeah.
we were talking about it in the chat. That really hit me in a special place.
Well, which place? There's a couple places you could hit a guy.
No, definitely in the heart.
Oh,
I definitely have love for Steve Jobs.
Good. There we
go. For a long time. But yeah, that was really well done at the end. I guess what I wanted to throw at you is, what next? You've kind of conquered most of the stuff at this point.
It's funny because I love talking to customers and partners. It's an incredible amount of stuff. And, a natural question is, when is it going to be available? And it depends. Some of them it's going to be next quarter. Some of it we're not giving you dates on, okay? Don't want to get any false expectations. But if I flip that around, if I walk into an enterprise and give a more catered roadmap with a little bit more specifics, they're going to necessarily come back and beat me up. And actually, I like that.
Yeah, me too.
Because then I have more ammo to come back and push product management and keep this wheel moving, right? Keep this machine going. There is plenty more to do, Nick. Make no mistake. There's more apps. There's more clouds. There's more hypervisors. There's more operating systems we can go after. There's more file systems. There's more, opportunity in cloud native apps. There's so much more we could go after. And, the thing is, we're looking at it all, right? We talk, my team, Melissa, Michael, and then we have David and Corinne and Anthony, and I'm probably forgetting somebody else. And I've got, Kirsten, Dimitri, and Andre, and Nicola on the Vanguard program, right? We're doing all these things. And Dave Russell on our team on the enterprise strategy, and Jason and Jeff aggregate all these things, and we push it back into product management. Basically, we're doing kind of this guerrilla market analysis from customer and partner feedback, right? And trust me, there's plenty.
That's a good way to put it.
It's working. One of the things I love to say here at Veeam, and I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, so nobody listen, but I love to say I love to say that Veeam is different, but it works. And that's not necessarily a product thing. It's like the company and the business. We're just a little bit different, but it works. We're not based in Northern California. We're just different, but it works.
Based in OHIO,
That's
aren't
right.
you?
That's where I'm at now, and the CEO lives here, so I'm calling it HQ.
Well, hey, there you go. Temporary St. Pete reprieve, I guess, right?
I love it here, though. Actually, I am in the office for the special occasion and all, but it's different, but it works.
All right, so I'm going to ask you a fanboy question. What was, of you, of the announcements that we just listened to in the last 90 minutes, what is the one you're most amped about? I'm going to make you pick one of your children. What is the one you're most excited about? What do you think has the biggest potential to change the market for customers?
I do think it is the CDP, the continuous data protection implementation of VMware technology. And I'll be the first to admit, right? Those are the fanboys out there keeping score might remember we kind of gave that demo in 2017 as well. I'm not going to, pretend that didn't happen. But the reality is, when you look at a Veeam product and a Veeam release, there's a huge expectation that it has to be right. Yeah. And the QA burden for something like that is significant because people aren't going to be using softball applications. They're going to bring out their gnarliest to most highly transactional system for something like that. So we want to bring the right type of product for something like that. So that is probably the single biggest thing in the entire V11 release that we have shown. Yeah, there's more to it.
I'm gonna just let everybody sit on that for a second.
Because we showed 3, 4, 5 things of V11. There's so much more to it, and the reason that's very intentional. The stuff that Michael and Melissa demoed, Michael did V11, those are at a readiness state. That's very important. We've done something different over the years. We used to do these VeeamON demos to shake the world and stuff, but the readiness state goes into what makes an eligible demo, right? So there's a new kind of process that we put in place here. Danny's been a big proponent of that and some feedback. So the thought here is there's more to it, but some of them aren't all, we kind of do a green, yellow, red system, right?
Yeah.
And it's a prioritization, but there's many more things up our sleeves, friends.
Yeah. No, I I definitely get that sense. If I had to pick one that I was most geeked out about the whole time, it was AWS.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I said it in the chat when we were watching it live. I never actually got time to get around to V1 that you just came out with in December.
Yeah.
And here we are 6 months later, and you're already putting out V2. And the demo that I believe it was Melissa gave that one, it looked fantastic. And I can't wait to see one where it's not blurry, but that's another conversation for another time. But I definitely want to engage a little tighter on that one and looking into what we can do there. I'm looking at opportunities for things like Cloud Volume Service that we have in there as well. Can you guys back up that data as part of a larger plan? If you're in my subscription and I buy CVS, can that be included as part of the backup plan, not just EBS, EFS, and S3, etc.?
Well, more cloud services for sure. I mean, that's absolutely an angle. We had a similar thing come up in Azure. Okay.
Yep.
So Amazon and Azure, from our side, are going to be playing this ping pong game with Veeam Backup for AWS and Veeam Backup for Azure. Because V1 of AWS, then V1 of Azure, V2 of AWS, which went out today. Then guess what? And guess what? And the thought here is like other services are absolutely a target. In fact, Azure Files is a good example. Like we can back them up now with our NAS backup engine.
Right.
But I'm working on something. Whoops, maybe I shouldn't be talking about that. But I'll just not talk.
Yeah, we are live on the internet.
That's
right. Now,
live. That's right. Nick Howell is not an industry analyst.
I am not. No. We are very, very trusted strategic partners in this cloud race.
So, the ping pong game is fun. That's what I meant. To say. Yeah.
No, and I get that. And there's a difference between taking a file-based backup of a generic volume A, whatever that might be, and being able to trigger, orchestrate snapshots as differentials or incrementals, I should say, between a full state versus incrementals, and being able to store that and catalog that and archive that as part of a bigger cloud strategy and even a hybrid cloud strategy that I could see potential for doing with something like Orchestrator and bringing all of that stuff together with policies. So I love the idea of doing all of that.
Well, I mean, we're in a situation where we have an opportunity to let the orchestrator do more things, and we're getting started with the VAO v3 with the NetApp orchestration, and that's actually, I probably should give that one a real close second, because that is a really big deal for DR, made easy, done right, verified, tested, with a great transport mechanism like ONTAP snapshots replication. Right? So, that's actually a really big deal. So, especially for NetApp folk, they're going to like that. A lot of people, by the way, they think that Veeam's topped out and just does this virtual machine backup toy, but that's not the case. I mean, we're getting so big. It's actually hard for me to staff it, honestly, with all the new products and ecosystems that we're working with. Getting ready to add someone based in Europe on my team. So, it will be up to, well, right now, that'll make it 10 people on the technology evangelist team, excluding myself. So, Veeam's growing, and we've got a lot of markets to tackle, and there's still market share to grab. So we do it through our partners. That's the other thing. It's interesting about Veeam, different, but it works. Partnerships are in our DNA. One of the biggest, in fact, of the traditional storage systems, NetApp was the focus here for VeeamON with VAO v3. But we integrate with a lot of the technology platforms, and that partnership also goes to the channel. It goes to service providers. It goes to distribution, right? So partnerships are in our DNA, and that actually works in today's market, right? You can be we just have so much I don't know what the word is, diversity. We're segment diversified, we're geo diversified, we're getting to be product diversified. We've got alliance diversification, and in today's business conditions, it's actually really helping us.
Yeah, the thing I would add into what you were just saying right there is, if you do have NetApp storage and solutions in your data center, in your environment, the value that introducing some Veeam software brings to that for being a NetApp owner is monumental. We can do a lot of stuff with data, just on the arrays, in our software, all of that. but then to bring in a Veeam that also integrates and has an orchestration platform that's bigger than just your storage and your data, but also, I mean, the instant database recovery stuff I'm fascinated, because I used to have to do BNR and business continuance for giant Oracle instances that included rack and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm very well versed in that stuff. So to see something like a SQL database be able to just be instantly spun up and emulated, I think was the word that was used.
Well, the actual storage of the database is somewhat emulated in a way, but it just transparently. I think J.P. Warren said it best as sorcery, on Twitter.
What manner of sorcery is this?
Yes, no, and I love it. I mean, it's like
a witch.
It's a database. It's okay. We're gonna leave it. So I love these types of things, and I can't wait to test it. And I guess I could steal it from Michael's lab, but I want to play with it. I want to get more familiar with it. We had really good questions on the stream for it. So yeah, I mean, these types of things, especially if you were really going after that backup administrator, backup persona, this is the stuff that's going to be like, whoa, this is going to get me out of a jam. And if I'm a SQL DBA, this is a battle I've always fought, right? They're always looking at me funny. But, we did some things with the Oracle community, and they like what we've done, right? So we're getting there. And the application area is always the one that'll make it sticky. And that's important. If they like what we do and it is sticky from a backup standpoint, then we're just going to keep being successful.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. Anything that we didn't discuss, or I want to be respectful of your time here as well, and as well as that. The one thing I did want to call out, Melissa in the chat said, remember, you don't have to be an existing Veeam backup and recovery customer to implement VAO with NetApp.
That is right. You can do NetApp snapshot orchestration only with the VAO v3 deployment. Thank you, Melissa, wherever you are. Actually, she's that way. But
that's pretty slick. Yeah,
that is cool. And the other thing I'll say, I guess, is a kind of other thing to keep in mind is that even if you're using a NetApp array and you have another backup tool, if you threw Veeam Backup Community Edition and took a look at the NetApp snapshots, you can crack open and do some really cool recoveries just from that. And guess what? That's free, So I won't pull it up here, or I'll just summarize. But one person a few years ago, Chris was his first name on Twitter. Yeah, go find the tweet. But anyways, he said, how could I remember a tweet from like 8 years ago, Nick? But I do.
People leave impressions on you online.
Yeah, but Chris said that Veeam Backup Free Edition is doing better than what we're using that we paid for. And it has a bottleneck analysis, which is nice, he said. No, 117. That's his name on Twitter. How do I remember it? This is so weird. Anyways, 117 is his name on Twitter. He said that. And no, I thought that was kind of cool.
That is cool.
I mean, you can do that today. Free edition, community edition is a great way to just kind of like, oh, wow, Veeam's different, but it works.
I've got a couple of Synologies. I've got external hard drives. I've got computers. I've got Macs. I'm an old crash plan guy for just to full disclosure. But I quit using it when they screwed up recently, last couple of years.
Chris Adams, that's his name. Chris Adams, that's who said it.
Hi, Chris Adams. You just got called out.
From your tweet 8 years ago.
Right.
Nothing.
So I'm definitely looking at working with the Veeam Community Edition. It's not something I've worked with it in the data center. I've never worked with it in Data Center Dude's data center. I've never worked with it at home in the studio here.
In a data center?
No. You want to see it?
Sure.
Oh, I don't have the camera on over there. Never mind.
Oh, that's true.
No, I basically put a 22U rack in my closet.
Hey now. Wow.
Now we're talking. Yeah.
That's
serious. And we've dubbed it Data Center Dude's data center. So
DC apostrophe SD.
DCDDC?
Is it SDDC? No.
Yeah, you know me. Never mind.
There's a T-shirt for our first in-person event. There you
go. You're one of my favorite people that I love, just like walking by and I see you talking to like 27, holding court at the Veeam booth with 20 people.
I always smile
when I see Rickatron doing Rickatron things on the expo floor.
Yeah,
and that's I miss it, man. I miss being able to walk over, just walking by you and some of the old guys like Dearden and Cade and Doug. What's Doug up to, man? I miss Doug.
Doug is building a house in Florida and enjoying Florida's semi-retired life.
Nice.
So good. I'm kind of jelly of that.
Yeah, I think we all are at this point.
Right.
Oh, man. Well, Rick, I really appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule to stop by and join me and wrap around for a few minutes. Anything else you'd like to say to the audience out there about Veeam and what you guys announced the last couple of days?
If anybody's watching this and if they didn't get to attend VeeamON, come on back next week to VeeamON.com. We're actually exposing a whole bunch of new content trick up our sleeve. Yeah, including the NetApp content will be there as well. So we're featuring some NetApp content next week. A whole bunch of it is on demand. You can fill your nights and weekends and days with content.
Nice. Well, where can everybody find you, Rick? Let everybody know what you're working on, where they can find you online.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I blog at checkyourlogs.net and also on the Veeam blog, on Twitter at Rick Vanover, and from there, all things.
It's pretty much Twitter, right? It's where we hang out these days.
I like Twitter. I mean, I'm not. I do Facebook and Instagram, but that's more like where I'm riding my bike and what I'm eating for dinner and stuff.
I don't think I've posted on Instagram in 6 months.
I haven't either. It's not saying my life is boring otherwise, but yeah. Anyways.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, man. I really appreciate you taking time. I know you guys are really busy right now, and thanks to your team for sort of staffing the chat today during our watch party of the keynote and throughout all of the demos. They're doing a fantastic job.
Appreciate the opportunity, Nick.
Yep. Have a good one, man. Take care.
Chris.
Bye. Uh-oh. We lost camera. Give me 1 second, guys. Do. Why is my camera not coming up? Oh, my goodness. What is happening? 1 second. Well, this is interesting. This is one of the problems with Windows and webcams, is it doesn't like sharing cameras with other between applications. And that's just how it goes. Give me 1 more second. Let me see if I can pull this up here. No. Switch that and that. Got it. We're back. Cool. Sorry about that. Well, we got what we wanted. Why are you counting... What? No, that's not +3 for... Why are you keeping tally on how many things I say that are pro Mac? Come on, man. Did you guys enjoy that? Did you like the after party? We did one on Monday with Kirk Ryan that turned out pretty good. And then one right there with old Rickatron. OBS Virtual Cam. I'm not even messing with that yet, man. I got a friggin' ATEM right here. Why do I need OBS Virtual Cam? Come on. Oh, I love Rick. Rick is one of my favorite people in tech that I have known for. And the irony is most of the people that I know and love in tech have either gone through or are at Veeam. I think of Cade, Melissa, friends like Dearden over in the UK, and I mean Rick and Doug, and just people that I acknowledge and appreciate and want to be around and like all of that. Like there's something in the water over at Veeam that either makes everybody want to go there or they're just doing really good stuff. All right. ATEM is the way. Don't use OBS Virtual Cam. That's garbage. It's a terrible open source plugin. You can get it to work, yes, but Lots of good stuff today. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to let you guys get out of here. I've kept you for too long. But I hope this was worthwhile. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And thank you all. Thank you. Especially to Cade, Melissa, Anthony for stopping by. Everybody from Veeam that helped out field questions and things like that in the chat. Thank you guys so much. Really, really appreciate it. And let's see. We'll be back tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We'll be back for one of the regular weekly streams tomorrow where we're finishing up. I have some news. We're finishing up Data Center Dudes Data Center. We got the network fixed. We'll see you guys tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.